We know that Yakinda's going to be entry. Twistzz, if he is going to in-game lead, will be part of the map control pack. NAF is probably going to be one of the extremity, either lurk or hard anchor position. They need an AWP. What about simple?
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees. Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
Quickly. To clear. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, welcome back to another episode of HLTV Confirmed. Thank you for joining us from wherever you're watching. It's a big world. It's a huge world, and it's a small world at the same time. That's a ride at Disneyland. Anyway, shout out to our sponsors, 1xBet. Remember to gamble responsibly and trade at .gg. If you're in the marketplace for skins, you know where to go. We got Dimitri pushing the buttons today. Lucas is taking this Friday Friday. He's a party animal off. So Dimitri will be the man in control. We've got Prof, we've got Striker, and we have an esports betting expert who is a real racist, Launders, joining us. We're going to be talking, this is going to be the first Elden Ring podcast, I do believe.
We're already so off track, man. I really love that. Yeah, I'm going to be, I streamed Elden Ring a little bit this morning to beat a boss from last night, and then I'm going to boot it up again whenever we're done this podcast. So let's hurry up, huh?
There's so much hype. Have you guys seen this, Prof and Striker? Everyone talking about Elden Ring, everyone playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Launders going on these massive spiels like he's a basketball coach in a movie from the 90s, doing a Coach Carter type thing, getting everybody fired up, like for Own a Pixel. What's going on?
I watched the first minute, and honestly, just absolutely randomly, I did boot up Elden Ring for the first time like 2 days ago.
Oh,
like literally the day that video dropped from you and OnePixel. And that was pretty good. I watched the first minute, and then I'm like, I'm gonna watch the rest in bed, but I was too hyped to watch before sleeping. So it's still like in the back burner for me. But apparently I need to make a new character. I made
here's the Counter-Strike relation, okay? Because for the first like 8 years of CSGO, I didn't play any other game at all. And then the only reason I did play other games is because when I was streaming, people would be like, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And everyone wants to see a streamer get their ass kicked by Dark Souls. But then I realized after playing it, like, this is a nice game for people who play Counter-Strike and other like hard esports when it comes to single player titles to try, because normally they're too easy. So it's not interesting. You get bored of it. And like, you play Counter-Strike and like, it's a challenge every day. You know, it's a mental challenge every day. Like, it's very taxing, and you get that same feeling gratification when you play Dark Souls. So it's a nice game for, I think, Counter-Strike players if you like can't figure out a single player game you enjoy.
Is this the one that Kai Sen? What is his name? Kai Sennett, the streamer who's been doing stuff with Kevin Hart. Yeah, and he went nuts when he beat the boss or whatever at the end.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
It's a big thing now. Like, hasn't Elden Ring been out for like 2 years? I Like, I've never actually played any of the Dark Souls games, but I've heard, like, for the past 10 years, the hype. Why is there still hype?
There's just a DLC that came out yesterday,
Okay.
and so that's the first piece of content since the game came out 2 years ago. And whenever they've made DLCs in the past, they're usually the size of a full game. So like they really go all out for them. That's why people are so excited.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we aren't here to talk about Elden Ring. We're here to talk about Counter-Strike, the game that we all know, that we all love. And we are 1 week, well, we're 5 days deep into the tournament break or player break. You can call it whatever you want. You can use the official, let's just say the holidays.
I thought, like, since when are you so accepting of people just calling it player break? Like, you used to always correct them all the
I've
time.
stopped caring about a lot of things, Striker. Nothing really matters anymore, does it? You know, with the only thing that matters is the X and the O's in the server, who's getting the headshots, what strategies have been used, what is the meta of the util. That's all that matters. The other stuff, whatever. We can all have our opinions. And
who are you?
I'm trying to be more zen. You know, I'm going to pick up a new religion, maybe. So
wait, sorry, if not the player break, then what?
Tournament break.
Tournament break, fair enough, because it's not inclusive to us talent who also travel a lot.
Well, no, it's more to do with the fact that players think that they don't need to play any Counter-Strike during the break.
Oh, okay. Now you sound like a coach.
Yeah. Well, it's just because when we come back in the first day that the tournament break ends, they're straight into games. You got to practice before that. You got to be back in the service for like a week or so.
Interview with Alish, he was referring to this as well. He said like it's 4 weeks, but it's 2 weeks before you need to start practicing, so it's like 2.5 weeks. Somehow the math doesn't really check out there with what he said, but it's Counter-Strike math.
In fact, you're right. If Liquid had it been on a tournament break and not a player break, they would have won Berlin because they would have taken less of a break and been ready to beat Astralis in that quarterfinal.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
But technically, Cloud9 is on a tournament break for like 5 months already. So
they're having a great break. They're having a really good break, aren't they? They're having a fantastic time. All right, gentlemen, let's get into tonight's show, which with us being in the break, we're essentially wrapping up the season that's come to its conclusion. Launders, you and Scrawny got to cast the final game of the season, it being Spirit lifting the trophy over there in London. And I guess what we should do first is we should use the Blast results or the outcomes at Blast to help kind of I don't know, not hang our hat on the season, but help us frame the season for all of these teams, right? Because there was a big conversation going into it. Who was going to be the best team of the season? Could Vitality get a trophy? Well, it ended up being Spirit. So what are your big takeaways, Launders, from that event?
Yeah, that was our narrative that me and Connor talked about going into it. Like, what's the angle for this event? And it was that like there's like a 6-team race to like win an event to save their season, sort of. And it was like, Spirit FaZe, like G2 maybe a little unlikely, but Spirit FaZe, NAVI, who won the major, Vitality, who didn't win a single event. That was the big one. And I think for Spirit, even though even though it wasn't like an event as long as Katowice it was a very legit run. Like it was like 2 out of the top, or the 8 teams there were ranked between 2 and 9, and it wasn't easy. And they had the best of 5 grand final as well over the major champions. So it was a very legit second win to really validate what they put together at Katowice. And also, I'd like to say people have been really wondering why we use the word like fluke or fraud or to talk about these teams. These are reserved for only like the best teams in the world, like the S tier teams, the teams that have won majors and like events like Katowice. They get held to a higher standard because they're measured against each other. So when we talk about this season of Counter-Strike for the tier 1, we're really talking about, did Vitality win more tournaments than FaZe? Did Spirit end up being better than NAVI in the end? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the Spirit conversation, this is where it opens up and we see if we get a consensus of the room. Do we think that the first season, if we were going to be ranking teams, gentlemen, we would put Spirit as the best team of the season with the Katowice and then the London win just before the break? Obviously, they didn't attend Pro League. I don't think they were in Chengdu either, were they?
Nope.
Nope. So, they did miss a couple of events, Pro League obviously being one that it would have been great to see them out in that type of environment playing so many games. But, Prof, where does Spirit fall for you? Are they your team of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to give it to them. Obviously, there's a bunch of competition, a bunch of teams that are kind of close, but ultimately combining Katowice, like one of the biggest tournaments, I'd say the biggest tournament after the major. And that's at the start of the season, and then at the end of the season, they have this Blast win and a couple of playoff runs as well. Like their average on all tournaments is super high, and then they also have the great like peaks as well. So in my opinion, yeah, definitely the best team of the season.
Striker, do you agree with that? And if yes, who would be the second best team of the season in that case? Did Blast help bring that forward?
I think realistically, just the only two teams that can realistically compete for the team of the first part of the season are Spirit and FaZe. FaZe, because of the way they started out, I mean, they went to the finals of both Katowice and the major, which, you know, by that point they were obviously the best team, even though they had won neither, just because, you know, NAVI didn't do so well in Katowice, and then you know, Spirit. Well, I guess with Spirit you can maybe make that argument, but by the time they won Chengdu, there was not really a contest because they made all three finals. They won one of them, and you know, the two of the biggest of the events of the season. So I would say for me as well, just because the consistency of Spirit, also probably I would put them on top, even though, you know, their sample isn't as great, just because they did turn up every time it mattered. You know, the quarterfinal finish in Copenhagen, which was the difference of a few rounds against FaZe, is their worst result of the season, and that's saying something.
Just so, were you saying you'd put FaZe as number 2?
Yeah.
So what? Okay, with that in mind, then I could definitely get behind the logic they're talking about all the finals and stuff they're in. But is it a worrying sign for you the way that it fizzled out in London? Right, the last few events that they started to attend, like obviously they had set the bar extremely high by being in final after final, obviously winning Chengdu. But do you think the way that they were eliminated in the last couple of events takes a little bit of shine off? Because there's definitely, right, we know there's a lot of chit chat in the forums and everything all the time. Yeah. But you know, the community, like, oh, does there need to be changes at FaZe? Where does that put them for you with their result in Blast?
Well, I mean, obviously recency bias makes people think that way, and they kind of are quick to dismiss whatever happened at the beginning of the season. And that's I mean, it's fair. Obviously, if you look at FaZe at this moment, they're obviously on a downwards trend that's been showing ever since Pro League, effectively, and because they went out, whatever, top 8 was there, then another top 8 in Dallas, or top 6, I think that was, right? Because they went out in the quarterfinals, and then another top 6 here at the spring final. So, of course, I mean, if you compare it to the beginning of the season, it's nothing great. But then again, it's not like EPL was a shit result for them. It was just they lost to the eventual, well, finalists because Vitality didn't end up winning. But that was like one of the top 3 teams that was probably supposed to win that event. Dallas, I think, was like when the alarm bells really started ringing, just because of the way that they lost to G2. And now, of course, I mean, spring final doesn't help that. So I understand people who are saying that there need to be changes, or there needs to be, like, they need to change something, even if not player changes. But that doesn't necessarily take away from their season overall.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's where I was trying to differentiate. Is anybody here worried about FaZe? Does anybody think that this murky end to the season will carry forward into the next?
Dude, FaZe are like one of a kind, right? Like, I remember after Antwerp, like, technically this is the closest Kerrigan's ever got to like his era. It was like all these second place finishes. He was really, really close. But as we point out, that Spirit are the best team because they were the highest average and won when they needed to. FaZe didn't do that. So they missed like a very important window of like energy this first half of the year. And that's typically what happens. Like, very hard to be that consistent for that long, and they missed their chances to win. But after Antwerp happened, they obviously fell off after that too a little bit. I remember before Antwerp took place, actually, this was like online, and I was like, they need to cut Rain, because Rain was, everyone was looking lazy online and stuff, and I didn't understand at the time, but it was obviously because it was online and people were just demotivated and everything. And then when all the lands kicked up again, Rain was amazing again. And now Rain's like been amazing. But this is just so FaZe. Like, it's so hard to call their downfall because they will have like 6 months periods of not winning an event or averaging at least like quarters. And then they'll have a very high average for another like 6 months or so. So I feel like it's a fool's errand to say, oh, this is the end, because Kerrigan's 33. So it's like he could keep going if he wants to at this point.
I'd say, like, if we do like a sliding, 1 to 10, how worried, and 10 is like the max, I would say like there's like a 4 or something.
4?
I'd say for me.
Okay.
3.5, somewhere there. Like, it's not looking great, but it's not, again, because everything just the launders just explained. Like, it's not, oh my God, this is end, they need to change someone right now. I don't think that makes sense. And obviously they still have 3 insanely good players some of them in better and worse form. But we saw Rops, Rosen, and Brokey this year being pretty sick at different times, right? So it's just about getting that a bit together. And I think the main difference between like the two seasons, if you look like Spirit and FaZe, is that FaZe played more tournaments, and I think that will reflect most of the time negatively on you if you're playing literally every tournament, going deep in every tournament. That just limits how much time you have to like practice or just decompress from the season. And I think they definitely have more time to they have some leeway in the second half of the season to correct from where they are right now.
I think
Should we do a bet? You guys have done some very historic bets here on the show.
Okay.
Dear.
Yeah. When does FaZe? Who's going to call the FaZe fall off? I think this bet should be between Sponge and Striker. So
Why do I have to be involved
How do
in
you?
this?
Well, you
how
won
do
the
you-
last one, so you've got to.
So
Oh,
what do
wait,
you
no,
mean?
you didn't. Did you?
I lost the last one. I had to
Oh,
pay
shit.
out $2
Yeah,
grand.
You can't end on a loss, Cat. Come on.
No, I
Double or
learned my
nothing.
lesson. I went to the casino. I lost everything. I went, fuck, no betting for me. So I thought that was a pretty solid one. And FaZe were the team that fucking lost it for me. So I don't want FaZe anywhere near my mouth.
Actually, if you think about it, that's what created me, the racist. It was this whole international team thing that happened. And until this day, we see that like Harrigan's rosters, and now it feels like it's going to be Shuhei's rosters, are going to survive as international winning teams for like as long as they decide to play. But as long as it's just them, then it's fine. Everybody else.
I kind of agree with you. I don't want it to be too many because I think we start to see individualistic, sloppy Counter-Strike. The team stuff, we give some people something to root for. But where I wanted to go with this was talking about after the major, because of the placement of it for this season that's just gone, which we know is changing for the second season of the year, which is going to change the whole dynamic of peaking. That is going to be a whole new conversation that we're going to have next season for the first time, essentially. And we have, I don't want to call it a fizzle because I don't want to detract from the tournaments, because we definitely had key storylines that teams needed to win for if that roster was going to continue. We obviously had the Stewie situation over there in Dallas, which was like the fairy tale run as well, right? So all of these tournaments had something that these teams were playing for and building their narrative, building the lore that is these squads and these teams and the rivalries and everything. So there's definitely points to them. But with the major being smack bang in the middle of the season and then all the events coming after, it's not an arms race to win that one big event before sayonara, going for your month or 2-week break or whatever it would be if you ask Alish. It's, different priorities at different points, different teams burnt out at different points. And I think that makes things a little bit tougher to like pin the tail on the donkey and measure things equally or evenly. You have to measure each team on their merits, on their results, on even factors that we couldn't possibly know about, what personal issues this guy got going on. They're burnt out. Do they need to spend more family time? So all of those factors playing in, I think it's tough to grade the teams, but we're obviously, that's what we do. We talk about them, right? But I just think that needs to be kept in mind. And this is why I'm really excited for next season, because everybody, they can't be getting into the middle of next season and going, oh, we're fucking burnt out. No. You need to manage your output correctly for going into the next major. So that's one conversation which needs to change, and probably a big thing these teams are going to be talking about during the break. Now I probably should have had a follow up to go somewhere with this, shouldn't I? JL's in the chat, and he's an individual who cited having some motivation issues. Launders, does their grand final run? People want to call it a fluke major. People want to use all this terminology. How do you get to?
I'm people, by the way. So
okay, all right. Yeah, hey, like the meme from What do you think that their performance in London does for the story of NAVI from the first season?
It was great because it was like a lot of healthy maps that they played. I mean, it was like it almost felt like they were going to beat the stats again, but in a different way. Like at the major, of course, there was the fact that they had lost more rounds than they won, and there was some of their star players weren't playing it to their best ability. So it was weird to say they could justify having them in certain positions. But at London, everyone was playing a little bit better, and not all the stats actually reflect that. But when watching the games, definitely, I think it looked like a better team overall. And I think the same thing could be said for Spirit, where like Katowice was them spawning into every map with a 5-0 lead and donk with 15 kills. And at least and then we've seen them lose and get stomped and choked since then in a couple of matches. But here at the end of the season, they actually had some games they had to come back into. They had some games they stomped, but it wasn't always donk. It was sometimes just Shiro. Zontix was a lot better. Remember you talked about Dontix getting swallowed by the stage of Copenhagen. I have brought that up a lot since then because it's clear as day if you're watching what that nervousness can look like, or someone just having a really off day. But I feel like both Navi and Spirit and in London showed much healthier improvements, and so I wonder, like, are they? I'm sure it was on their minds probably. Like, do we need to make another roster? Is everything going to work with everybody that we have on the team? But I would be wondering if things were already set in stone, or if they're even still thinking about that now.
Does anybody put Navi in their top 3 for the season? Major winners.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I think that's where
big lows. Yeah,
I think that's where it gets very tricky between all of these teams. How much do you rate the major win versus I don't know, Mouse's consistency, but then
I don't know
not
if you
really
could put 2
performing.
studio or events over a major win.
Yeah, I don't think you should. There's like a conversation if we're just talking about like rating the results and not like how good is this team going to be in the future, right?
Yeah.
Then probably you have to put Navi, final here, and the major win is.
Did you say top
huge.
3?
Yeah, I was just because we had Spirit as number 1, and then Striker was saying he
would be
feels
top 3.
So yeah, I think an argument could be made, right? It's depending on how you're measuring like the trophies and like obviously the type of Counter-Strike, what you just cited, launders from the major, the fact that they were they lost more rounds than they had won, but still won it, right? The thing is, everybody's playing for the major, so it's so hard to sit here. Like when the whole jail saying, "Oh yeah, motivation or stuff." I don't have the direct quote, but when he mentions that, I kind of can. I can understand that in a way, in the sense that the top of the mountain is winning the major.
I mean,
right?
It happens to every team. Like almost every team that wins a major is not going to win. Like in the next 2 months, they're not going to win tournaments, or they're going to like crash out completely. Even the best ones, rarely do they continue in like a winning form after it. And especially ones that are not that great, like Navi, realistically a massive underdog to win the major. And at
There's
least
a difference, though.
At least they didn't disband. That's like most of them did.
This might be a little harsh, but I think there's a difference here because coming into the major, I think Navi were like a betting odds, the lowest percent chance team out of the tier 1 to be able to win, like coming into the major. Whereas like some of the lucky runs in the past, like Cloud9, at least they were, they were at number 6. They had like some good wins. And their wins during the event were really strong. But like Navi, the thing is, it's like every team like falls off afterwards, and it's not to say the run itself wasn't great, but the lead in also wasn't that great. I think there's just you just have to give them credit for the fact they won the most important event of the season and the biggest pressure ever, which is how we define our champions. They are the ones who overcame it, not FaZe in that grand final. So you have to respect that more than Mouse Sports winning in Malta or their other studio event or whatever the case may be. That win is worth more. It is.
Yeah, that's probably the angle that I would lean to as well, right? Because there's a reason that we talk about the majors being the most prestigious. If I'm talking about the type of Counter-Strike I saw and took the environments out, right, and I looked at the type of CS, I would go with Mouse over Navi because I think that Mouse played better Counter-Strike. They played very confident CS. It was quite aggressive. It was exciting Counter-Strike to watch. I think Navi at times showed really class CS, and they had to use all of their parts maybe better as a team, whereas like Mouse could definitely play good team Counter-Strike, but their individuals could really power them through certain moments. They would just get multi-kills in a lot of these rounds, or at least it felt like. I think if that is what I'm going with. I would put Navi as the third because of the major win, and that definitely stands out, right? I had them. We're going to go to the time capsule we did at the start, Launders. You're going to have to play along with that. Maybe you could grade us, the three of us, tell us whose time capsule you like the best that we did at the start of the season. But I had Navi down to have a roster change before the player break, and that was off. I think the rest of them I was pretty good on, but I think that obviously the major win, this grand final result at Blast just before the break, that's going to keep their roster as is for the second half of the year in the second major, at least in my opinion.
I mean, definitely the uptick from Ime. I know some people are mentioning like Bit as a potential player to replace, and I think Bit has like so much leeway on this team. He needs to play like very bad for him to be removed, just because of the Ukrainian angle and also for the history he has a team. He's kind of being molded in the face of Navi, right? And it just makes sense. I don't think his contract was in danger in any way for this season, but it definitely Imes was, and I think he played a pretty decent tournament here in London. So again, could they have a better player? Yes, but this was like a good uptick in performance, like compared to the major for sure.
I do think that I just wanted to cap off the conversation about like who the top teams are and what the order would be at the moment. I did a reasonably scientific way just because we were trying to eliminate one team out of the top 6 for like 5 candidate or like 5 nominees for team of the year, you know, for like the mid-season update that we did at the show in London on Monday. And it was basically until the end of spring final, it was very unclear about which out of like 3 teams would end up there. Navi would have obviously been one of them, just because of the one single peak they would have had all season. Just because, you know, up to the spring final, they didn't really have that much else to show for it. But it is very difficult to pick, just because even Vitality, without their wins after Katowice, they had a lot of consistency there. They just didn't pick up the titles that they were supposed to, right? Then you have malbs, who, like, if you look at through their entire year so far, Dallas is their only bomb out. Otherwise, they had Katowice top 4, Major top 8, Chengdu second, Pro League and Dacha wins, right? So the consistency is there. FaZe, you know, apart from basically this last event, also had the consistency. They made playoffs every time, also peaked. You know, they had a couple of 3 finals, even won one of them. So it's even like all the way at the top. It's been a very competitive season, and it would be very difficult to make a very obvious call to rank everybody from 1 through to 6 at this point. Like 1 to 2 is like FaZe Spirit, and then 3 to 4, 5 maybe, and then maybe Vitality would put at the bottom just because of a lack of peak, you know, lack of tournament wins.
I have a question. So I feel like we're at odds with 2 things here. One, it feels like we got to respect the fact that Navi had the major win, which matters a lot. But then number 2, do we feel like if malbs played in a stadium event right now, that they would go past Navi, that they would beat FaZe and potentially win if they had another chance today? Is that like the feeling that we're fighting with?
I mean, it's very difficult.
In an arena.
In an arena, yeah.
I guess that's the thing, right? Because they were in the final in Chengdu, right? They got there and they won playoff games. This is the issue. This is why their end to the season.
I mean, they won a playoff game.
Yes. This is why Dallas, I think, leaves such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like hearing that they didn't practice when they knew it was going to be their last event of the season. And we wanted to see if this team was able to do it again in still a smaller sized arena event, but a good arena event. I don't want to take anything away from that Dallas crowd. But that's just where for malbs, I'm like, fuck. Like that's just left me feeling a bit ugh.
The thing is, like, if we want to do predictions for next season, I think we're all going to put malbs above Navi of what we expect from them. But looking back is a different story, you know. What happened.
And it's also just about how highly you rate the major, and as like compared to a Katowice, you know, how much harder is it actually to win a major compared to a Katowice, which has realistically possibly even better competition, just because, you know, the qualifying system is always about a longer period of time rather than, you know, a few teams make it there through the open qualifiers, you know, not as much regional representation that is forced, you know, from all these angles, you know, like how much higher do you rate the major win over Spirit's Katowice win, for example, you know, especially in the fashion that they did it, like incredibly dominantly, you know, all the way through. So that's kind of where you have to weigh your own factors.
I want to ask you a question, launders, because I've spoken to Prof and Striker about this team plenty of times before, but I'd like to hear what's your take on Vitality, because they seem like a little bit of an enigma. Right? Like this is a team that you can have these decent results and play good Counter-Strike. They obviously have ZywOo, but then there's so much talk around like Apex's antics, or maybe Mezzi's not good enough. And then the last couple of events he's been good, and then people are talking about Spinks on the lurk and it just having absolutely no impact. But Flames is good in big games. Is he in the right roles and positions? You know, what's your Vitality take?
I think I've got a lot.
Okay,
I got a lot.
We got a lot of time.
Okay, so first of all, start with Spinks. I think when 2023, between like May and or like April and June, when the IM Rio and then the major, that's when Spinks got way better, and he was the electronic to ZywOo Simple, and then that's when they closed out the major. That was their strongest, and then that's when they also had Magisk, who's not doing a great job of anchoring on Falcons, but was actually doing a way better job on Vitality than Mezzi is doing now, unfortunately. I think at Dallas, we saw that Mezzi has a high ceiling, but if you know, this is again always conjecture, right? If anybody's listening, doesn't want me to say what I think, but I feel like Mezzi has shown that he could play good rotator roles. I feel like he has the aim to do it. We saw that, but as an anchor, I don't really see it. As an anchor, when he's playing really important rounds, he doesn't have what, you know, Magix and Zontic showed on Spirit. He doesn't really have that. It's like I explained what I feel like a good anchor is in my last video, and that's that you have a very, very small window of timing to get your 1 kill and 2 kills, and you're never warm, but you have to stay hot at all times. Like that's sitting in a site waiting for the one round where 3 flashes, a Molotov comes out, and 5 guys start running at you, and you have to get your 1 or 2 kills. And I just don't. I think, you know, a Perfecto, a Shush, a JKS, these guys have that ability to really like clutch out those few rounds and not get the most kills in the end, but really have the important rounds. I don't really see it in Mezzi personally. So I think that's been a problem in some of their instability in their big games. Flamesy is getting better. He's like inconsistent, but trending up at the same time. So that's fine, I think, because he's got a high volatility position. And then Zywoo's great. He just has in this season, we're like very, you know, we're taking a microscope to his stats, but it's like just the, you know, now it's like the last map of a grand finals in front of a big stage in front of a huge crowd. That's like the one thing where maybe, you know, he's not got as much X factor as some of the other players like Donk and m0NESY. So I think it is a combination of all those factors.
So if you've gone for a conclusion on the team going into the break, right, keeping all of that in mind, their results, do you think they have the pieces, they just need to move them around? Do you think they need to change pieces? Do you think, like, I know there's conversation about Xtaz as a coach as well. Like there's a lot of stuff that people are throwing out there around this team.
I feel like, I mean, I don't know. The most evil thing that I could say is that they should all go for these anchors that are available, like the Perfecto. They should someone should try to buy Shush this season. Someone should try to get Perfecto this season. Someone should get JKS back on the team. I feel like these 3 players actually are going to solve a lot of problems for the teams that are not like Mouse or Spirit. Like even Rops is inconsistent. Even Bit is inconsistent on Navi as an anchor. Like this is a season where like a lot of teams are struggling to find that. G2 is like the #1 problem that they had this whole year. And I think that
self-inflicted, of course.
Self-inflicted. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I hate to get into that, but
Chad with no expression.
I guess you guys got into that a little bit.
That is the best poker face fucking ever. Love it.
I mean, listen, with JKS, he's not a superstar player, but he was one of the best anchors, and that's all that was needed to balance out Hooksy, who was statistically very weak. And Hooksy actually had a pretty good beginning to the year, to give him credit. But now that he's back to where he was, that really highlights the weaknesses on the rest of the team. He needs 4 insane players around him. I think that's the story with G2.
Yeah, and like we can get into G2 soon because I think we just need to cap off a couple more little details from Blast, and then we can start getting into looking at this report card and doing all those bits and bobs before we shift forward into some of the news about the roster changes that are already happening. So there's a few more teams. I don't think we need to spend too much time on Saw. I think now the fact that they are tussling with the big boys, it's a big reality check, right? It's the difference between when you're an underdog and no one's really expecting too much. Then you can make those breakthroughs to when you can compete against them consistently. Astralis, I was very high on them, but they look like they still have a lot to work on to get themselves to be like. I think the pieces of the puzzle are there, but their game is obviously not complete enough. Sometimes their teamwork looks really disconnected, disjointed, doesn't make much sense. They're all just taking a lot of individual fights in post plants when they could be teaming up and stuff. So a lot of pedestrian level mistakes that need to really be fixed within the team. So I thought they were primed to be, at least charging for trophies towards the tail end of the season, but I think that they're still a ways off of that. Maybe that's good, so they can try and peak for the majors, still with a lot of work to do. Does anybody have any big thoughts on Astralis?
I think I mirror what you said. I think that they play too loose a little bit. And like, I feel like the conversation is, guys, we're fucking insane right now. We've got like a good thing going. We're like, God, we just got top 4, before they started getting every event at top 4. And that the calling is just not as structured, as it used to be. It's arguably better still, but it's not good enough to be able to like win an S tier event. So I think I agree with you. Sometimes you see them make a lot of individual moves as if they're sort of a mix of heroic and Astralis, which they literally are, except they don't really have it like they did back on heroic.
And then I guess the last one, guys, is the development of VP, right? Obviously, they made the playoffs. but there was 6 teams making the playoffs. So it's one of those things again. Like VP have so much, or it feels like they have so much firepower because Norbert's delivering fantastically well for somebody who plays his type of positions and roles. Obviously,
well, I mean that's slightly outdated view as well because he's definitely been on a downwards trend in the past maybe month or two.
So he's
like
not
last
doing
few events haven't
Norbert
been that
30s
great
anymore, mate.
Yeah, I mean that's the point, right? Like he was hovering around whatever 105, 110 even at certain events, but he's just gone back to his kind of norm from the beginning of the team, and that's obviously causing some issues, or at least it's not balancing out the weaknesses that they had before. So
I do like watching James go for clutches though. That's nice.
Yeah. It is curious, because I've heard that Electronics calling a hell of a lot on this team, even though obviously James is the IGL. So I'm curious about how that's going to develop. There's very clear mismatch of philosophies between those two, and I mean that's obvious to anybody who watches Counter-Strike even a little bit. Electronics has always been this mega aggressive guy, and James has been the polar opposite of that for all of his career. So it's I'm not sure if I'm necessarily swayed by this London result either. Just because it's an 8-team event, they made it to the top 4. It's nothing to scoff at, but it's also like it's hard for me to look at it and think that VP's issues are solved. We can expect them to make playoffs all the time now. We still saw the same exact issues, where sometimes their fast plays look a little bit underdeveloped. They don't seem to have so much they haven't had so much time, to develop their new strats and their new style. So I'm curious about where that's going to go next season.
All right. Let's jump into these report cards. We can reflect on what we thought at the start of the season and kind of see how everything unfolded from there. Now, Dimitri, are you able to bring this up, or do I need to share it?
It's already there.
It's already where? It's on the screen. Wow. Holy shit. Look at this. Dimitri's killing it. Okay, so just to catch everybody up, at the start of the season, we came up with this little concept to do a time capsule, and we had these, I think it was 5 categories we chose, and those categories were to predict for the season what these outcomes would be. Prof, Striker, myself, we did that. So let's take a look. Let's flick into it and see how things opened up. I think, who went first?
I think mine was first.
There it is. All right, Prof. So don't make the major, Gamer Legion.
I got scammed here. Honestly.
You did get scammed because they didn't make the major, but then they got a free ticket.
I technically it's correct. They didn't qualify for the major.
Mm-hmm.
So
they were there. I saw them,
but they were there. So you can judge that however you want. My other answer is kind of boring for the Vitality team of the season. ZywOo MVP. I was just like coasting on last year. Let's just go. Default. Nothing too exciting. Obviously wrong on all accounts. Vitality, I guess, definitely not in conversation for the best team of the season. Like they're okay, but nothing really great. And then team to make a roster change, Cloud9. I got that one. They made not even one. They made 25 roster changes. They don't even have a team.
So what, you got 1.5 out of 5?
Yeah.
What are we going to give you a half for the Gamer Legion one here or something? Launders, you're taking a look at this. How do you feel Prof did?
I gotta feel bad because obviously it was no one could predict a lot of things that happened this year, like Katowice, Stewie winning Dallas, like all this stuff. I don't hate it. I feel like I would say it's a little crazy to think that the back-to-back major wins were coming, but not super ridiculous based on them being good. And I mean, I'm feeling pretty lukewarm
good
about
at the
all
end
this.
of the season, right? So
it's
just
they had a win at the end of the year.
What can you?
I mean,
even
this year, it's not like they were a total failure. They just averaged top 8, top 6 or whatever.
All right, let's go to the next one, if we could, please, Dimitri. All right, there we go. Striker, don't make the major heroic.
They did. So
unlucky there.
No good.
The NiKo does right there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go so lukewarm just because I had the major MVP as donk, but the major winners is Vitality. So I had donk getting the MVP over a winning ZywOo, which was a crazy thing. And honestly, up until Spirit lost, it wasn't entirely out of in the quarterfinal to FaZe. It wasn't entirely out of the question. Obviously, Vitality also didn't make it on the other side, so that's also another thing to consider. But that was, at least I tried.
I think the fact that both of you have teams making roster changes, though, there's something that you smelt in the water there. G2 obviously with the whole malb situation that's going on now with Nexa. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail later. And then
I don't think
Cloud9.
I get a lot of credit for that, to be honest. I think everybody saw that was coming at some point.
Well, we all wanted to add something a little bit different. Flick it over one more, Dimitri. We'll go to mine. Okay, so I got the double whammy. NRG and Grayhound both not making the major, and then they ended up in FlyQuest. I think they really need to thank the Mongols for that, because now there's a third spot for the Asian side of things for the next major. Yeah. I went with Rops as my major MVP, but FaZe were in the final, so I had FaZe as winners. They weren't, but
it was pretty close.
Yeah, and team of the season Spirit, bang on.
There we go.
And team to make roster change NAVI. So
and we still have time to find out.
Yes, I will. I don't think it's going to happen though. Like, especially with the messaging that seems to come from Blade, I don't think they're going to change anything.
Okay.
Striker's nodding, which
honestly,
doesn't seem to be. Yeah,
he knows.
Yeah, but honestly, how is it possible?
Yeah,
how is it possible that this was the one that's not correct?
But
that's crazy.
That's the thing. We probably won't see, like, Vitality probably won't make a roster change. Navi probably won't make a roster change. G2 definitely are. FaZe probably won't make a roster change. Spirit definitely won't make a roster change. Mounds won't make a roster change. We've just named 5 of like the 6 top teams there, right? So it's crazy.
It doesn't seem like it's gonna be like a big period, right? It doesn't seem
shouldn't
like
be too bumper. Like teams like Liquid will have obviously are making changes, right? We know that those changes are going on there, but yeah.
But there's always
unless they steal from some of the big teams somehow, then it could like start a little snowball effect.
Yeah, and there's also Falcons who I'm sure are looking 24/7 for like potential improvements. So if they somehow enter the discussion and steal somebody off, then like everything's going to cascade as always. Like that's how it started. I also thought the last off season wasn't going to be that crazy, and then everything got set off by like 3 things happening. So it's there's still time. I also don't, to be fair, I also don't expect that much, especially considering the news that the cutoff was going to be so early. So whoever's the people are not going to not going to want to put their cores in danger or anything like that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, let's jump into our next little bit that we've got, so we can take this off the screen, Dimitri. And Prof gave us all some homework today. He wanted us to pick some moments of the season, and I'm sure people in chat, if you want, you can play along. You can throw your opinions of this in there. Favorite and least favorite moment of the season. So, would anybody like to go first?
Maybe
I would say I would start. Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Launders, you want to go first? Your favorite moment of the season?
I mean, come on, this got to be easy. It's Stewie winning Dallas, I think.
Oh, shit.
That was the most racist thing that happened this season, if you think about it, actually. Like, I'm making a racist tier list today for YouTube for, like, the HLTV top 20 teams. And G2 are in S tier because they made the riskiest racist move. Literally, there's almost no other argument except for racism that they did this. They got an American player that didn't know who Donk was to come and play on LAN for one of the premier organizations, and they won the event. It was the most unlikely possible outcome. This is the craziest tournament run since Flusha came back from his break in Katowice 2018 and won that. This is maybe even more insane. Of course, Flusha got MVP, but this is something ridiculous. So
Stewie, I was trying to get Stewie MVP when we were doing the DHL voting, right? So obviously the people at home vote in Twitch chat, but all the talent have to do a vote as well. And I was like, when they were starting to win in that final, I was petitioning. I was in the room with every other member, and I was like, you guys got to be putting Stewie first. You can't, because I was like, the DHL one, unfortunately, because of the way that they've structured it, it essentially means nothing, right? We're doing the voting while the series is on. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? So I was like, we may as well just give it to Stewie. Let's see if we can get it. But it didn't go down that way.
Sabotaging ESL's award, man.
Well, we may as well have. It could have, it would have been even better. Why not?
Honestly, it would have been hype as fuck.
Yeah,
it's all for content anyway.
Should have had it going. But yeah, that didn't unfold. Okay, your favorite moment was Stewie winning Dallas. Striker, what was yours?
I was going to go all the way to the beginning of the year, more or less, at least, and to Katowice, where if you look back and how you were looking at Donk, this whole phenom, the whole discussion around Donk, besides his performance, was his antics and like, is he going too aggressively? Is he shouting at people too much? Nobody cares about that now. Like, everybody stopped talking about it like 3 months ago, but I will bring it back now just because I think that's how people got really introduced to Donk, and everybody, like, it created such a it was such a big controversial point. You know, everybody was talking about, is it too much? Is it not too much? Is it fun? Is it not fun? And so, like, the moment that I wanted to pick was Donk just shouting "save" at people.
Like yelling. I like the thing that ESL did, that long 40-minute thing, whatever it was, and like the way that Donk would talk to his teammates as well. Like, there was one thing in there, it's just like, let's just run at him, like just swing. Our aim is better than all of them. Like it's awesome to see like the confidence out of the kid. Okay, so Donk being naughty was your favorite moment of the season. I like how succinctly Dimitri's put that there. All right, Prof.
I mean, I wrote down 2 and they kind of overlap. I did have G2's Dallas win because I think it's just absolutely insane. It just is so unreal that this happened.
You're copying Launders' homework right now.
But my number 1 wasn't Donk being naughty, but it was just Donk in Katowice, because I think that's unprecedented for a rookie to come in to an event of that stature and put up a record rating for the tournament. Like, of all, he matched NiKo's tournament rating for an event that is uncomparably smaller from an era that is uncomparably less competitive in his first arena event. Absolutely insane. Like, all of the criticism, all of the like lack of belief about Donk was just out of the window. There is no discussion anymore. Is this guy for real? Instantly in one tournament. So I think that's, for me, the favorite moment of the season, the introduction of Donk in Katowice.
Okay, lots of Donk glazing going on. I'm going to pick one outside of the box a little bit, and it's quite recent. So maybe there's a bit of recency bias playing into this as well, but I think it's going to shape going into the second season a lot of how the game is played.
2025 killed partnership leagues killed. Is this it?
No, but that was last year. That would have been my favorite moment of last year if I had to pick one. Valve's announcement. No, but it was the update to do with the diffuse after planting, right? So obviously the way that adjusts the second rounds, the cheaper A4 and the incendiary change, price change as well. I think that those are all really positive changes that the community have been asking for in one way or another. Maybe not directly to have those things changed in that way, but problems that we were experiencing, especially with plants on the T side, second round buys with Galils, and then the CT is just feeling fucked for the rest of the half. Right now, I think that there's a little bit more detail that goes into that, and I think it's exciting because there's more options to discuss. You know, you get 1 or 2 kills, maybe you drop an AK. Are we going with more Tech 9 buys? I'd love to see next season if we start getting more Tech 9 Mac 10 full execute rounds from the T's after they get the plant and going into second rounds, or will we just see full, like, teams I feel like have more options, or the decision trees opened up again? So that update I think has a really positive impact for MR12 because we're still really in the infancy of MR12 and where the direction of this new format is going. So for me, in terms of the way that the game is being played, I think that update has a lot to offer, and we're still just in the early stages of it. So mine's probably the boringest answer out of everybody's. I'm sorry.
Yeah, anything that says economy in it just sucks. So just like, oh God.
And I used to sleep in economy in high school. That was the class that I would say it was the first period of the day. So I would stay up all night playing Counter-Strike, and then I'd just go and sleep in the back of the room. And the teacher was like, yeah, whatever, dude, just fucking shut up. So that was pretty good. Okay. Well, least favorite moments of the season. Oh, look at me. See, guys, I want to point out to everybody. So this picture here is before my hair transplant. So you can see that there's towards the front of the hairline. Oh, it's gone.
Oh, that's
like come back with the transplant with more hair AI generated.
I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, you can see quite a few gaps here towards the front of the hairline. I'm pointing and touching the screen right now.
That's like in Dark Souls, there's sometimes like shortcuts, but they're hidden, but you can kind of see them like pathing through your hairline there.
Yeah, you can make your way through that. Okay, so I'll just pick up where we left off. So worst moment of the season for me was Grayhound not making the major. It's the first time in a very long time the Aussies, whether it was those lads or the ones that came before, didn't make their way to the major, and that's pretty devastating, right? Even though that I had predicted it in my time capsule, I predicted it for a reason, right? It wasn't like I was just hating.
The counter jinx, like a jinx.
No. It was because Dexter coming over and having to transplant, just like my hair. The way of European Counter-Strike is going to come with a lot of issues, right? Because
growing pains.
You're gonna
and
learn.
it takes like 3 to 6 months, right?
Yeah, usually. But you need to be able to get all that information through to the team, and then when you're playing high stakes Counter-Strike in that environment, and you're so used to playing a bit more loose, and a bit more in a style that you're very familiar with, and now you're trying to emulate something that Dex has taught you, which you know is good because he's just come from the mecca of Counter-Strike. You don't want to make mistakes, and you might not make the normal plays that you need to, regardless of learning that system, that are going to win you the games, especially in close environment matches. And you're also playing Asian CS, so you're playing a different style of CS than what Dex is trying to teach you. But what Dex is trying to teach you is to beat world CS, right? So I thought that they would have those blending issues, and that's kind of how it unfolded for them, unfortunately. All right, we'll go back to you, Launders. What was your worst moment of the season?
I guess similar. It was Liquid not making the major.
Okay.
Because I was just like, it's just so disappointing. Like, it's just so disappointing. I don't even know if it's because there's 2 Canadians on the team or what the deal is exactly, but just like those players getting together for a team that, like, the on paper composition is pretty cool. Like, you want to see this, like, team could do more. Maybe they wouldn't be able to, like, win events, but like the major was such a low bar for like that roster, who also formed a team so that they could play in the NA RMR as well. So I just thought that was just like, you know, when there's shit like videos of you like fixing a car together and then you can't like win important Counter-Strike games, like save all that shit, man. Like, get good at CS first. So
it aged very
really
poorly,
hated that
didn't it?
moment. Yeah.
It could have aged very well, but it aged very poorly.
There was a whole
hindsight,
conversation about this on social media. I don't know if you guys caught it between Edward, the mental coach from
Mind Body Esports.
Yes, from Liquid right now, and previously other teams, and Maui, of course. And Maui said something along the lines of, "No one ever is going to go for a non-PC boot camp before the RMR after this." I think that was it was a provocative statement, I would say. But at the same time, just listening to how Twistzz talked about it at the Confirmed we had in Dallas, I think I would say Twistzz is never going to have this happen again. I think I can say that much. For other teams, obviously it might, but yeah, they're not super happy. And I think one thing is like about generally, mental performance coaches and stuff like this is like, we can't really know what happens and how much effect they have. But I think in this case, we can say that it did not help, or that it did not make anything better, because obviously, what we know from behind the scenes is that a lot of the things that are not working in Liquid is not like on server stuff necessarily. It's more about people not seeing eye to eye and just like not vibing together.
Like, they could have been death matching more. Like, come on.
I'm just saying that this, like, all of this like mental get together didn't really bridge this gap that happened, that came out later in the team. It didn't really do anything about that, and just the team kind of is now stuck in a pretty shitty position because they lost their IGL and Opper, and nothing that they did off server prevented this.
It has worked once before, to be fair to like that aspect of like building the team with Vitality. When they brought in Dupree and Magis, they did that thing where they went to like climb a mountain with like a map and a compass in the snow. And well, Zonic said he would never do it again, but they did win the major. So it's hard to say exactly what's useful and what's not.
Yeah, I think
it also took like 6 months or something, or however, to win that major. It's not like it came overnight.
It was even more than that.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of these things, right, where one of the big conversations when this Liquid team came together was the idea, at least in my mind, of all of these big personalities and the fact that they're going to be a team who gets fired up, right? You'd have Katie and you'd have Zeus. Your Kinder likes to get a little bit loud. Twistzz does the same when he's having big moments and they're rolling through matches. So like that fire didn't blend. There were different types of fire. It definitely didn't work out, right? Because to have the roster changes they were having is quite telling, that the things that were immovable and someone had to be removed. 2 of them, obviously. Okay, well, I want to get into this talk, but I also want to make sure we finish this succinctly and then we can jump in. So, Striker, give us your worst moment of the season.
I hate putting any more focus on it than there already has been, but it's the fans storming the stage at the major. I think that's by far my
shit!
least.
I
That's an
completely
actual
forgot
moment.
about that.
Oh yeah,
Actual
that
moment
was
that
actually
I hated.
Mouse's chance to like prove on stage. what he could do.
I feel like that's such an overstated thing. Chad has been saying the same thing for like a few months now, ever since it happened. And I'm like, it happened halfway through the second map where they were already losing, and they were on course to lose that series either way. I don't think, like, look, is there no world where they would have came back if that didn't happen? Of course not. There always is. It was like a 7-5 half or something that they would have had to come back from. But realistically, they lost the first map convincingly already. They were not in that series at that point already. So I feel like this is way too overstated for what actually happened in that game. People feel like it happened like between map 1 and 2 or during map 1, but it's not. It didn't.
Yeah, I think
that's
one of the
fair.
things though is how badly it definitely affected some of their players. That's probably the bit, like, because even if there was no conversation about them coming back into that game after it happened, because I think
shit like that just fucking like I don't even know what it would be like in that situation. But I remember like one of my first I was like played in a match that was on CS:GO Lounge, and so I was like I got DDoS like 4 times in one game. And I remember like ending the half, like I was just like 0-7 after like reconnecting. I couldn't even think about Counter-Strike at all for that entire game. Like, and then by the end, I remember I got a bunch of messages from bettors and they're like, the fuck is wrong with you throwing that game? Even though I got DDoS 4 times and got kicked out of the server and came back in. And my last thought was anybody would actually criticize like the way I played because I wasn't even there. And I actually saw Zershin in the elevator after the game. And he's like, yeah, we were losing, but like we also after that had no chance. Like there was no way we could even like figure out how to get back into the game. So I think it's true that like they were losing. That's a fact. They were definitely losing in like more than one way. But it's also one of the few like chances they had this season to like play a big stage match.
Yeah,
I think one of the factors with that as well is how. Not about Mal's or not about G2, but with this stage, something how I thought there was going to be really big ramifications in how it would affect other tournaments with security. But I haven't been keeping the closest of eyes, but it doesn't look like there's crazy security around
anything
any
really
of the
changed. I mean, even the story from Dallas about the guy like stealing SSDs, that wasn't even during the match or anything, but still, that's a kind of similar weirdo story in the
it's
in the
so crazy
CS
that
scene.
someone could get backstage in that area in Dallas to steal those things.
Because at 4 a.m., how do you get in the building?
The thing that's so wild to me is I'm walking around with a badge and a wristband on at all times, or the wristbands on the badge anyway, and I'm still getting stopped and asked to look at it every single time I walk through. And I try and do the thing where, because it tends to be the same security guards and the same points all of the time. So what you do when you come past is you say hi, so that they notice you. So then if you ever forget your badge, you might be able to get away with sneaking. They never let me. I was like, this is okay. All right, fair enough. Always having a show it on the way down the escalator. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't have the effect on the security that I thought it would. But that was miserable at the time. Remember, you and Connor were casting at the time, right, Mohan? Because I came up to check on you guys, and then I was like, well, I'll stand here in case anybody tries to climb up the fucking scaffolding.
Dude, that was a low moment, but one of the high moments of that season was standing up there in the commentator box and looking down and seeing all these things break out. Like it was like security guards, like rushing and stuff like that. And then these 2 guys getting into an argument. And then one of them was like made fun of the other one for being an Astralis fan because he was wearing an Astralis jersey. And then the guy in the Astralis jersey goes, well, you're fat. And then they started fist fighting while there was like people rushing the stage. And like the cops were coming in, the security guards and shit. And me and Connor were standing up there like, are they going to rush the stage or what's going on? Completely unrelated. Just got into a good old fight. Just for no reason. As an Astralis fan and a fat guy.
Yeah, that's one of the best stories for the major, I reckon. Now that always tickles me. That was just the idea that this guy yelled at a guy for being an Astralis fan. He's going, well, you're fat. He's instantly just go, well, you've recognized me for my shirt, so I'm going to recognize you for your weight, and let's brawl. All right, cool. Fair enough. All right, yeah, good one, Striker. And, well, not a good one, but I understand why you selected that as your worst moment of the season. Prof.
Yeah.
Fourth and final.
I'm going for Cloud9's roster development.
Okay.
What team is
honestly, just look at Copenhagen Major.
It's many moments.
Copenhagen Major, they had a full lineup of 5 players.
A full lineup of 5 players.
In the quarterfinals, they had Boomich, Axile, Electronic, Perfecto, and Hobbit. How, like 2 weeks later, they have 2 players? I do not understand. This makes no fucking sense. Like the mismanagement of this, the potential that we had last year. Of course,
Yes.
it was overhyped. It's fine. It was okay.
It's okay to get excited.
It's a bit overhyped because you know, maybe it actually wasn't. I don't know.
Is this cope though? We didn't get to see like a Boomich and an Opper at the same time.
Yeah, but then it's like how out of all of these combinations you end up with like no one wants to join this team. Like there's no interest from any players from, you know, Russia or the region that want to. They need to go like super weird picks or whatever to get a lineup, and it's like it's taking I don't know how many months for them to actually put 5 players together. For me, just sad. Like, you know,
Just
we didn't
sad.
maybe that original super team couldn't work, but like give me something, you know, give me some. There's too many good players for us to have absolutely nothing happening from this roster.
Yeah. Okay, look, gentlemen, we still have so much juicy stuff to talk about, and we're already an hour in. So let's do this. Dimitri, run the ads. We'll come back, and let's start setting our sights a little bit more forward into the recent news and all that good stuff. So we'll be right back. Stick with us, guys.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees. Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
Quickly. To clear. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xbet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO.
All right, we're back in action. Striker is auditioning for a role in the next Twistzz movie. They already did Twister. Now they're doing Twistzz. They need one more. There's a big storm going on. So we might lose Striker. If we lose Striker, everybody, I want everyone to stay calm. Get out your candles and light one, not for him, but because he might lose power. They'll definitely keep the lights on. But look, we're going to get straight into Skinionaire. We won't waste any time with this. Dimitri can whack this one up. And we're going to do Who Wants to Be a Skinionaire, brought to you by Trader.gg. Now, if you're in chat and you're interested in participating in this, you need to type Trader in chat right now. This would be your raffle ticket to enter the draw. As this quiz goes, we have 5 questions, multiple choice. I do believe Launders will be the individual answering the questions here this evening. And Striker, if you stay with us, you can be his lifeline. Launders, are you ready to take on?
I think Sponge, you should be the lifeline.
I think we set a
I should be
record
the
last
lifeline?
time for like
Yeah,
worst
for this one.
Skinionaire when I played.
Is it too easy for me, or what's going on?
It just makes more sense.
Okay, I'm the lifeline.
You'll see the theme. Of
the theme. What's the theme, Prof?
The theme is Valve rankings.
Oh dear.
Valve rankings.
Valve rankings.
It's a little blitz quiz. How have you been following? You know, are you up to date on who the best
Blitz
teams
plays
are?
on Mongols.
Well, that's one of the questions. Let's go.
Oh, what? Okay. All right. Well, let's kick things off. Remember, type Trader in chat right now for your chance to enter. One lucky winner. We could potentially be taking home a $50 voucher. Otherwise, 50 cents, as well as $57, $50, or $15, depending on how many Launders gets correct. Let's get into it. Question number 1. What team is number 1 according to HLTV and Valve rankings? Spirit, both HLTV, Vitality, fucking hell. HLTV, Vitality, Valve, Spirit, HLTV, Spirit, Valve, Vitality. I hate this quiz already.
Oh, it's because he put. Wait. Oh, Valve's
Yeah, no, I don't love it.
Wait.
I think
Valve Spirit.
I
Or
think
sorry.
it's Spirit
yeah.
Spirit.
Yeah, isn't that right? Oh, Spirit both. I see. Okay, yeah, let's go Spirit both.
Like, yeah, look, all right. Look, we're locking in a Spirit. Fucking such that you've done rankings, Prof, and there's 3 different rankings, man.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned the ESL one, to be honest.
No, and they don't need a ranking anymore.
We just need
so
to
they
know,
should
you
probably
know,
get rid of it.
get the pulse of the rankings. Are they good? Are they bad?
All you
What's
have to do
going
is
on, you know?
aggregate. You just have to aggregate all the rankings to get the best one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 2. Here we go. How many teams with Danish core are in the top 30 of both HLTV and Valve rankings? 1, 2, or 3 Danish core. So we're talking 3 or
Ooh.
more.
I can only think of Astralis. There's 2 Danes on Heroic. There's Snappy on. And Falcons has.
Falcons has 3.
Falcons has 3. So gonna go with 2. There's no like. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 2.
Okay. We're gonna lock in
I don't think
B2.
there's anyone else.
Who made that noise?
Nobody.
Okay. Locking in B2. Correct answer. 2. Okay.
Oh.
Bro, I thought Sashi would be there, honestly.
I actually thought Gaming Gladiators was there.
I got stressed out for a second there. I was, yeah, is Hunden in there? Yeah, who knows?
Sashi is number 34.
Ooh.
Okay.
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 Question
But
number.
we do have Gaming Gladiators in top 30, don't we? No, we don't actually. Not anymore. Never mind.
Question number 3. What ranking does OG have in HLTV and Valve ranking? 21 and 18, 25 and 37, 49 and 40. Dude, if they can't be in, there's no way they can be in the top 30.
Launders, you're an OG fan, so you need to know this.
I think is it 49 and 40?
There's no way they can be top 30. It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah. I think it's 49 and 40.
What was the last game they even played, let alone won?
I'm thinking
They didn't
India,
win any
probably.
groups. Last group
I mean,
would have been
they-
their only chance, right?
They played that Mongolian tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The one that the Mongols won. That's the most racist thing that's happened all year long.
Yeah, that was nice. That made
All
my
right.
heart full.
Do you want to lock in C?
Yeah, I'm locking in C here.
49 and 40, locking it in. Correct answer is. Thank God. When are they going to pack it up? Are they
That's
gonna...
crazy.
Wow. Come on now.
They're gonna sell HeavyGod too, right?
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
for a pretty penny or a heavy penny. All right. Question number 4. This team is ranked 7 in Valve's ranking and 12 in HLTV. What team is it? I mentioned them just before.
7 and 12. It's the Mongols because they were underneath Navi on the Valve ranking, which was probably not fair. and then 12 on HLTVs. Yeah.
All right, locking in the Mongols. Correct answer is the Mongols. 4 out of 4. Just 1 to go. Just 1 more for the $50
this is
skin.
crazy.
Redemption on the line, Launders.
Yeah, this is crazy.
We're doing it.
I have never been this good at Skinionaire my one other time trying.
What a bounce back this is. This is the comeback that no one saw coming. Question number 5. This Brazilian team is 21 in Valve ranking and 26 in HLTV's
Pain, isn't
ranking.
it?
I feel like it
Was that an
have to-
option?
Yeah.
I was looking at rankings yesterday, so I think it's actually Pain. I think it's
21
Oh, is that high,
Valve
actually?
and 26 in HLTV.
no, it's not high because Pain did go to the major, but they haven't played any international anything other than that. And MIBR just won an event. So they got to be a little higher. I'm pretty sure.
So what other Brazilian teams would even be in the top? Furia?
Just Furia.
Furia, Imperial,
Imperial.
Pain.
Oh, Imperial.
Furia
Pain
would probably
be
be the highest.
higher? Could Pain be higher or lower?
Pain did better at the major, but
Yeah,
it's
just
21
the major.
in Valve and 26 in the HLTV. So I think I liked your logic.
Yeah.
I think Valve would account more for the major, but 20. I think you were right with.
All
Pain.
right, yeah, let's do it. It's not Furia, so
Let's
run it.
See, Pain.
Come on.
This is for the
Come
5
on.
from 5. Roll the dice. The correct answer is Pain.
Yes!
The confetti comes down. Launders has
Vindication.
secured the bag. 50 smackaroos for one lucky winner in chat. That's brought to you by Trade at Who Wants to Be a Skinionaire. Launders going on the Hall of Fame in Striker's office. Oh, what a day.
damn.
Lone Star Cowboy has won the giveaway, and this person also came in and said this is the best CS show on Twitch earlier.
Rigged.
And this is
Rigged.
not
Absolutely not
Rigged,
rigged.
rigged,
Name your
rigged,
top
rigged.
3.
Rigged. Congratulations, Lone Star Cowboy. And thanks for everybody for participating. Thanks, Launders, for winning. And that's the end of the show. No, it's not. It's not the end of the show. it's really just the beginning, everybody.
We're just getting started.
It's really just the beginning. And now I'm going to be candid. I can't tell a lie. I didn't read the Perfecto interview. I didn't listen to the Stewie interview. So, however, I did read the comments about the Stewie interview, and I do believe that the general consensus is that HLTV misrepresented some of the things that were said by Stewie 2K with Maui, and lots of people weren't happy. Does anybody care to comment?
I only actually listened to the interview, didn't read the comments, so I can't. I don't know what.
Yeah, I only listened as well. So
I only read the piece and I didn't listen. So it's hard. It's hard.
We can figure this out if we remember everything.
But this is good because we have all different angles.
What would be misrepresented? What are we getting accused of here?
Well, let's start with Striker. Do you like Stewie more or less after what you read?
Would you purposely try to ruin Stewie's career? Yes or no?
But about the same. About the same, because I completely none of as much as it is some of the things he said are shocking, they did not come as a surprise to me. Let's just say that.
Okay. So
from Stewie, about Stewie or about G2?
Everything.
Was he classically candid Stewie? You know, just speaking his mind?
Kind of, yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Okay.
I think some of the biggest highlights would be, I think the talk about Taz was pretty interesting, where he said like Taz came in with like a lot of structure and it didn't feel fun. He said it felt like, oh, you need to be here. I'm gonna tell you about some strats and stuff like that, and that no one was really vibing with that.
Was this in practice or was this in Dallas? Or was it both?
It was like before the games and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Oh,
so that people weren't really paying attention to it, and you know. You can put it down to
people weren't paying attention to Taz.
You know, they were, but they weren't. You know, when you go to school and someone's like explaining something to you, and you're like looking at the board, but you're not really taking anything in.
Okay.
That's kind of, and he was trying to implement some things that really couldn't work. So people are like listening, but not really taking it in. That's kind of like, that was one of the, I would say one of the highlights.
Like even someone who know, like I know Stewie really well, like I played with him before. But the thing that even surprised me was him saying that he came into the roster and was like, I want to use, like, I came in with ideas for the team, you know, when I haven't even really kept up with CS that much. And they shut it down. They shut it down. But the fact that he had the confidence to be like, I know how to win these rounds. Nice to meet you, Monacy. And then try to do it. And then like they shut him down. But he was kind of still like, he genuinely like really believed in himself. Like that's what I got from it. And a lot of the things that he said came off as sort of like, well, like he doesn't really know how people perceive him and stuff, but he was actually being 100% honest in that interview. So I thought it was pretty charming.
I think that it can be quite jarring to people when players do talk a little bit freely, and especially about the dynamics in
because
teams.
There's so much fucking PR and everything people put out. It's insane.
Normally we hear nothing, right? Normally we don't get any of the interpersonal or like any.
He sounded really rich to me. He sounded
what does that mean?
Like if he was poor, I think he would have kept a lot of stuff to himself. But he was sounding very rich by the way he was just talking shit on everyone, being honest, saying exactly how he felt, not worried about his future opportunities, anything like that. Just like kept it 100% real, no hesitation.
Okay. I love how you use that to very rich. All right. I like that. Okay. So what other takeaways did we have from that interview, gentlemen? Was there anything else that you guys took notes on?
I mean, the fact that he doesn't know whom donk or Monacy is or how big they are, that's kind of crazy to me. But again, doesn't actually completely surprise me. So that was a big takeaway for me. So that's yeah, that was probably the most shocking.
Honestly, I think what explains this whole run the best is actually when he speaks about Mouse, because like he came in, he was like, I didn't know Mouse was like the best team in the world, like best ranked team at the time.
That was funny.
And they were playing them, and you know, he's like, NiKo is saying how they have these great team play, you know, rotation, stuff like this. Their system is so good, exertion, this and that. And he's like, I don't know who these people are. Never seen these names. It's like, you're NiKo. Why are you getting, you know, so hyped about these guys? Like, you're so much better than them, even though he doesn't know who they are or didn't watch any of their games. But that like blind confidence did something. It did fucking
It
something
definitely
that
did something. Yeah.
that I don't know. There's no
Remember,
other way to explain it than exactly this. It's just
You-
like fuck everyone. They're all noobs, and that's it.
when Stewie recounts playing at Boston, he said that he was playing support roles already at Boston, and then he went to be the IGL, and then had the sort of like bad PR stint in EG and all of that. But we're talking about one of the prodigies from North America. When he started off, he went from open to premier instantly, and then played on Cloud9.
Yeah.
Like he went direct. Like that is confidence. We had this scrim team called Just Make It Fast on ESEA. We played so many scrims. Everyone thought he was cheating when he was in open. He always believed that he could just like instantly go and play against any player. Like there's never been a gap in his confidence when it comes to just thinking he's the best. So it got him very far, honestly. But I still was surprised for somebody to be like out of the meta, out of the scene, and then still come in and say like, I know what we need
I know
to do.
better. I know better than you guys. That's honestly like there's something you have to respect about that. As much as it's absolutely delusional and none of that makes sense, it still doesn't make sense that they want to be like it doesn't really resonate with me, even trying to attempt to put together all the reasons why they did, apart from the obvious, Modesty was a god in the playoffs and all that stuff. But the fact that like you listen through these interviews and it was like the same as you went through the event. It didn't even change from before or during or after. Throughout the whole time, he's like, I am telling these guys, like, I know I've been in these positions. I'm like, you're talking to a fucking NiKo. You're talking to like the best rookie we've had until donk, or apart from Zaiwu or some shit.
Striker
Like you're
won major. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He won that over NiKo as well.
Yeah,
True.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Okay. So did anything, let's kind of, we might flip flop around here for a little bit, but we'll see where we end up. Did anything in that interview talk about Nexa? Because obviously, as we all know, Nexa has been benched on G2 and the malbs edition is coming. Oh, Striker just disappeared. I imagine his power went out.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's it for Striker. Goodbye, Striker.
Bye, Striker.
It's been fun having you. Okay, so was there anything from the interview with Maui / Stewie, or Maui's interview with Stewie, that was talking about Nexa or anything along?
He said that I kind of didn't really pay attention to him in a way, so there wasn't a lot of implications towards like what is happening right now with the Nexa thing, and potentially like, let's say in theory, if Hooksy would also be a change that would happen. Not too much about them. I think the main takeaway was kind of in terms of the ever-present vibes in G2.
The ever-present vibes.
It's always about the vibes.
Were the vibes good?
The vibes, like, they weren't good, but they were better as things rolled on. So
Okay.
that was kind of the implication, and kind of tagging on to what Monacy said after they won, that they need to bring some of these things to not over stress everything and kind of actually believe in themselves and not be always on the back foot somehow as G2.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a bit about G2 and the roster changes. Now, as mentioned, malbs is meant to be on his way in. He's just been gone from M80. So all signs are pointing to malbs to G2. My first question to the room: do we think that is it, or do we think there will be another change within G2?
Before I weigh in, I would like to know if anybody knows if this is going to be.
I don't know anything.
Okay.
I wish I did.
It's based on all the reporting, it's like pretty solid. Like
that's
the
it.
like the
thing.
money
That's
is
fucking stupid,
maybe even
man.
on the way already. M80 are looking for people.
Nah, that's fucking
it's
stupid. It's like one of these things that, like, as time passes on, we'll just try to like rationalize why it happened and see like, oh, here's the positives, here's the negatives. malbs is not an anchor. He shares most of his roles with NiKo and Hunter. There's
we can
an
bring
issue
up
of
actually
Striker made a thing.
Yeah, so when we can, you can just bring up he lost the moment for his point, but as you speak, Dimitri can bring it up.
Yeah. So this is it's a mismatch that I think would be fine if if he was demoted to just a lot of entry roles and support, whatever it is that he has to replace with Hooksy. That's one thing, but he's not going to take NiKo and Hunter's positions. They're not going to give him those roles, right? So unless we see like malbs shows like in a massive amount of range, it's just silly because it's not like the one player in the world you could have gotten. Maybe it was. Maybe the only player in the world you could have gotten is malbs. But if this is the one roster move you're making, you're replacing an anchor for what is technically like a tier 2 star player in star roles. Doesn't make sense.
But this is where in my mind, and I don't know, but it makes me think: is there going to be another roster change within G2? Right? Because if you replaced Hooksy and NiKo was to in-game lead, and I know a lot of people have issues hearing that, but just listen for a second, then you could put malbs/NiKo in a mixture of some of the positions Hooksy would play, right? Because not all of them are map control positions, but a few of them are because he's an in-game leader, right? And he's going to be taking space on maps. So, is there a chance that there could be an like Hooksy on the way out, and then malbs comes in, and then they get an anchor to fill
Then
Nexa's
you're
void
good.
still?
You shush, Perfecto, JKS.
Okay,
And
so
with
you don't even worry about saying Justin. They will definitely not get him again. So Shush or Perfecto.
Shush or Perfecto could fix them.
But do we think there'll be another change? This is what I'm asking.
Like,
Prof, what do you know?
Like, I just want to say I don't know. I would say more likely yes than no. To me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Just this little thing that.
Then why haven't they announced that yet?
What do you say?
Why haven't they announced it yet that they're getting rid of Hooksy? But
maybe because they don't have a replacement yet.
Okay.
Right.
I was listening to the talking counter, and Yanko was saying that like NiKo seems pretty intent on playing his roles for like the next 2 or 3 years or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah,
like obviously so I mean that does that lines up then with keeping Hooksy. It just doesn't make sense to.
But even if they replace Hooksy, obviously Hooksy is the other anchor, right? So then what is the, you still have you replace two anchors. You still need to have 2 new anchors, and malbs, as we have concluded, is not that. So do you want to do like kind of like I don't want to say like Boris was kind of anchoring, but also playing some star roles. Do you want to try to do that and get like a very skilled player and try to reform him, reshape him into an anchor? I don't know. To me, it doesn't make too much sense. I think it's too big of a change because at this point, you're just kind of like throwing darts at the board. Like, is it like blindly? Is it going to land or not? It's the fuck you don't really know.
They're also like, you're paying. It's not free darts either. Like they paid for him, right? They paid like a good amount of money to get malbs.
Yeah,
from N80.
I haven't heard any numbers, but certainly there is a number. He's not going for free, no.
What did that email I get say?
We can maybe full screen back, so it's fine. Yeah, where's your overdrive level rumors?
Did that email
reply to the guy and ask him?
He emailed me again.
Like this is the shit that just makes me mad because like I'm really invested in like careers of like m0NESY, for example, just as an agnostic esports fan of like great stories and players who have careers where we've seen so many players in history have like not the right team to start off, and then things happen, and there's lots of reasons why it takes place. But like the only thing that really makes me mad is when the teams don't support like those players in the best way possible, because it both ruins the story of the player that comes in and the player who they're trying to support. Like nobody wins in the end if you don't build the right team. And it's just like, dude, m0NESY has got to be like, okay, pro player privilege. m0NESY got to be one of the most important pro players right now in terms of stories, his career, what he means for this game. I think that he's in a special place. And so I just think it's just fucking ridiculous, actually, to be sandbagging that. I'm like, why would you do that to yourselves? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I feel that sentiment for sure. And I think that NiKo still has a couple of good years left, right, before he would need it. Like, so those two as an output for the team could be massive. And those are the two that you'd be building around, more so m0NESY, right? You'd almost sacrifice everything for him. Now, people said it in chat, but just returning to that email I got, the bloke said our buyout is 500K. Now we don't know if that ended up being the actual buyout.
No way.
Right, but imagine if you paid 500K for malbs, right? Like,
no way.
I heard 6.
Hey, maybe it's 7.
Of what? Fucking Turkish lira.
You gotta raise
or something.
You gotta raise us, Prof. Come on.
No way.
But this is the thing, right? Like, who knows how much money it would have been? But if you're G2, are you paying 500K for malbs, Prof?
No.
Is he worth 500K? Maybe,
but not for the right
for like
team.
a perfect fit
for the right team, right? And that's like maybe you pay that if Hunter is leaving or if NiKo is leaving, and you need to last minute, like 2 weeks or a week before the deadline for Cologne, you need a player, then you pay that. At the start of the transfer season for a role that's not none of his roles, I don't think that makes any fucking sense. Then why don't you just like buy an actual player that wants to do that?
Yeah,
As we mentioned, like a fucking Perfecto that could. I think with Perfecto, the only question is English and how that would affect things. But I think he just makes fucking sense for the roles that they have. They want to fill.
Anchors don't have to talk, man. Just a couple words around. It's all good.
I just received a message from an anonymous source, but one who is a legitimate anonymous source, and they said,
this is not the overdrive level. This is like,
this is someone within the industry who would know what buying players would cost, because they maybe would be wheeling and dealing as far as buying players would be. As it was much north of 500.
Fix.
In for poor English speakers, this means a lot higher than 500,000.
Like a DJ 32K, like with the.
I just want to like make it clear, for let's say there's Russian audience for example that's going to translate this through YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
This is like you're saying a lot higher than 500K.
You guys are bang on. Like, to spend that much money and for it not to be the perfect fit, or for there not to be another. Like, if you're buying one player for that much money, let's just say, I don't know, let's say 500 anyway. 500 is a lot of money. $500,000 is a lot of money, guys. That's a significant amount of money. We're just writing numbers on a screen, and that's what we think 500K is. But 500K is it's a lot of money. All right. So
it's a house. It's a house. It's an apartment in some cities, depending on where you are. Maybe like a quarter of an apartment in Toronto, but
they're
maybe
it's
like
a monopoly money, right?
In Croatia.
Yeah.
But so you buy malbs and you bring them into this team, and the roles don't make sense to us. So there are going to have to be some adjustments. Someone is going to have to make sacrifices. Malbs either has to become a different player, then that removes his value because you only are giving him the value based on what he does on M80, and you want him to be able to deliver on that. Is there going to be another roster change? Well, we don't know. You just spent 500K or north thereof of an amount. Who are you going to be able to buy? Are you going to spend another 500K to buy another player? Are you going to buy a player who's not under contract? So that then you just have to get them into the team. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. Listen, the reason I got into a beef with Donna this year is because of G2, not because of Nexa. They're the ones who picked him up to, replace a role that didn't really make sense. And like, if they do this, they both harm they might harm malbs, right? This might harm malbs in the end. This is like, everyone who's going to be talking about malbs, if it doesn't really work that well, is going to be saying he's not good enough. When it's like, what the fuck? Is he going to say no to G2? No, they shouldn't have signed him into a role that doesn't make sense. So it's really frustrating for like so many people involved, including like us who have to talk about these players. We have to keep constantly qualifying our statements with saying they're not bad players. They're just being used wrong, right? Like, what is the deal here?
This feels like 2017 GMing, right? It's like, NV need a new player. Let's get the best star rifler from LDLC and put him in support roles and like anchor roles, devil and stuff like that. And then, of course, he's dog shit because he never played any of these positions. And then everyone hates him.
I want to throw a statement into the world, and it's one that's definitely been made, and it's one that you see on the dirt sheets, the forums and stuff, and people talking about this. But if we'll stay on the vein of G2, and we can actually bring this Perfecto interview in for a second. But if they removed Hooksy, NiKo went to in-game leader, and Perfecto came in, then you had malbs, Hunter, NiKo, Monacy, Perfecto. I think that sounds like a good team on paper. Whether it works or not, right? We've seen a lot of these teams come together in recent times, and it hasn't gelled, it hasn't worked. So now I want to lean on two gentlemen who maybe did read the Perfecto interview, because I didn't. Is there anything in the Perfecto interview that talks about him potentially going to an international roster?
Yes, he says he is open to this concept.
He's
to this
open
idea.
to it?
Yeah. Not like he didn't say anything. He said nothing was signed yet. Doesn't have a team. This was also done during Yala Campus, so like a few weeks ago. But he said at the time, there's different talks, there's some offers, but he was like, waiting out to see what's gonna happen and if the right one was gonna show up. Yeah. and that's it. So he at the time he wasn't committed to any team, and there's a question about playing international teams. Would he be comfortable? And he said yes.
What about his English?
He's got basic English. Come on.
He has decent English. Like, you can do little interviews with that. You can talk with him. I don't know. Have you spoken to him ever?
Yeah, but like in terms of
I wouldn't say it's top level. I would say, I don't know. Like I would say it's probably better than Bits when Navi went international.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old is
he's also just like a quiet guy, in real life. He's not really he's not like jumping around yelling at people. So it's hard to know because he would normally get into those interview situations. But I feel like the couple of times I talked to Perfecto, he's like kind of understood. He's like been there to talk for a sec.
Well, okay, so Perfecto's 24, malbs is 21, and Monacy's what, 19? So
19, 20, yeah.
You go from having an old core, which they had an old, like their team right now, their team even with Nexa was a very old core. Monacy's the only young player, right? Like NiKo, Hunter, Hooksy, all are around 27, 28, right? Hunter 28. How old's Nexa? Nexa. Poor Nexa, man. Been made to be an in-game leader his whole career. 27. NiKo. 27. Hooksy. Look at HLTV, isn't it great? 29. They're an old as fuck team. They need young blood. So you need to be investing in the future if you're G2. So like malbs is good because he's young, Monacy's young, and then if you can get an anchor who's young and Perfect's only 24, that's pretty good.
I mean, as much as I'm not sold on this like NiKo IGLing idea, I do think this would be probably the best that they can do right now, and like their best chances of winning in the short term would be this kind of a lineup.
With Perfecto,
Perfecto and NiKo IGLing. I think that just makes the most sense because like none of the proven top IGLs seem to be available, and I think they need to do something to have a chance to win Shanghai, and I don't think it's realistic with the lineup that they have right now.
That's the thing, right? I think we're fair enough to say that it's actually difficult to say. It's easy to find the problem. IGL's not fragging too much, and then their anchor's a little weak. Okay, but you could reasonably, it feels like, change the anchor. You could reasonably change the anchor. Changing Hooksy might actually be difficult because it is like, who is the solution? Who do you get?
Yeah.
There's not that many IGLs that can win tournaments, provably. So yeah, don't want to like repeat myself like on that just to hate on G2, but it's just like what happened there that they couldn't get. It feels like there's options, that if they're paying money, especially if they're paying far north of 500K and they go and get malbs from a different region as well. Like there's so many risks involved. You're just like transplanting someone out of their out of a team they loved, out of a culture they loved, where were given all the space. You know what I mean? It's like when Grim went to Liquid from Triumph, and he was like, tier 2, all the space in the world, went to Liquid, bottom of the totem pole at Liquid, basically got bullied out of that team. And then, we saw like another story just like kind of wrecked. I just hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Okay. All right. With the G2, let's park it for now because I think we could go around in circles with this one for a while. Let's talk about some more of the action that's going on. So Liquid have benched Cadian, right? That was made official on the first day of the break alongside as the Nexa news. That happened literally the day after Blast finished. And Skulls linked with Furia. I think I mentioned something about that like in passing on an episode, but I think there's been more about that since. Which also opens questions about Furia and what the complexion of that team's going to look like. Is it just going to be Skulls? Are there going to be other changes? Quesarado and Yuri's contracts are up soon, I think people were talking about. Anyway, let's focus in a little bit more on Liquid. So they have 2 positions to fill, and it's almost a similar conversation, Launders, as what we were just having about G2, as one of the players in the team potentially having to step up to bat to be the in-game leader, and that has been rumored that it could be Twistzz taking over that role. How do you feel as a fellow Canadian about this potential?
I hate it, man. I mean, I was like, a couple of years ago, I remember I was like hanging out with Flaren for some reason. We were talking about this, and he was just saying that like Freiburg, like back in the day, went to go try to IGL, it just ruined him. And then you don't come back. You don't come back. Once you get that sort of vision for all of your teammates and the radar and the emotions of everybody, and you start taking on all that responsibility, you just don't have the same sort of like racing horse, blinders on selfishness that you need to like deliver on a star level. And like right now on Liquid, the only two good things about them in terms of star potential are NAF and Twistzz. And I just like, I, I also, I also have never once sort of felt like Twistzz Twistzz is like the perfect soldier, right? When things were really bad with Kerrigan on FaZe and they were like not winning yet and they had just picked him up. There were like, tweets publicly from Twistzz just supporting Kerrigan, just being like, man, I'm gonna follow you to the, through anything, thick and thin, and we're going to get better. And then they did. He just seems like
it was just like waiting for Rops essentially, and then when Rops came in, then everything kind of clicked, right? But that early stages of FaZe with Twistzz was like, there was nothing happening.
And Twistzz was openly sort of supporting Kerrigan, saying like, I'm going to support, in a way that Kerrigan never really had in his career up until this like FaZe lineup. It's getting kicked, getting moved around, Astralis FaZe 2017, and I just never felt like Twistzz is like the leader in that situation. It's just feel like the perfect sort of emotional support, the perfect like right hand man, the perfect like I'm gonna be a soldier like entry. There's so much we don't know, obviously, about what goes on in the server, so it's like his personal decision to make. But we have observed lots of players go to this role, and we know that there is a fee that you pay whether it works or not when you go to try to IGL, and sometimes that means never becoming good again. I mean, sitting beside a player on his team that literally is maybe experiencing that right now in Yakinder.
Yeah. I think one of the concerns that people have about Twistzz potentially doing this is how good he is as a player, and also his age, right? With NiKo, who we were just discussing, was 27. We just saw Device make that similar type of turn, and then maybe you could make an argument because of the necessity in G2. But this is the thing: is it a necessity for Liquid to do this? Who would they get as an in-game leader? Right. And they also need to fill the AWPing role. So if it isn't Twistzz, then who, I suppose, becomes the next question? Does anybody have an answer for that?
I think it's a very, very difficult question to answer. I just want to like back launders here for the Twistzz thing. Just in short, number one, you are risking a good thing. Him, as I said, NAF and Twistzz are the two stable things Liquid have right now. Putting him in the IGL role is who knows what happens, but it's kind of been PR'd for some time through the last like few months through different channels. It's like, he's doing this and that, and he's like doing a lot for the tactics and stuff like that. And I just hate it. I hate it so much. I agree completely that it should not be the case, because they are making enough changes to be like, okay, let's find someone that can fit in this lineup. But it's also very difficult for the same reasons as G2. Like there's not going to be a top tier proven in-form IGL available ever. That's just how it is. Like if you are in form and proven, you're going to be on a team that's doing well. Therefore, you don't want to leave. And whoever you're picking up is always going to be kind of a risk to some degree. The only, I would say, like alternative, like exceptions to this are, lower tier teams that are hitting a over performance peak, like
so taking a risk,
like Kicks and going to heroic, that kind of stuff. It's like you need to poach them at the right. Even that, like you need to probably wait for a bit for the fall off to come in so you can nap them. So it's a risk, and realistically, Cadian going out and the Skulls rumors, they can't get an IGL and an Opper as two different players, because if it had to be one players, I would say like, yeah, they're fucked. That's impossible. And then you probably need to make Twistzz the IGL. But if they're making two, they can get two different players. I think they should still try to do that.
I think one of so wasn't the Skulls buyout rumored to be like a lot when they bought him from
that was
Pain?
Like 600K,
yeah, and then they would have had to have bought Cadian as well, right?
Yeah, they
was
on the
bench.
Wait. Yeah, was there some? Maybe
I don't know. I didn't hear any figures thrown around regarding Cadian, but he was on
But
the bench,
he was
right?
also like, I feel like that wouldn't have been that big of a buyout, considering like how it went down with heroic and everything. I feel like they would be, okay to trade him for an maybe 100-ish Okay, but maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know the figures here, but let's say that we're talking. Let's just go with what you said, 100. So that combined, we're talking $700,000 for 2 players, which they now have gotten rid of.
Okay, I think they're in a obviously. I don't really know where to go in terms of solutions for like if they're going to cut the IGL and Opper at the same time. I also don't fully think like KDN proved that like he was doing enough on his end as well. Like as an individual, I feel like there's like Bubsky on Twitter brought up the stat that was like he has the same op kills that he did on Liquid that he did on Heroic. But I'm like, yeah, but did you watch any of the matches? Like he is not opping well in CS2. Like he can't hit his easy shots anymore. So I want to back him really, really hard. But at the same time, I feel like if we go back in time, what I would have done if I was Liquid was try to get Exist and KDN to come together to like really enforce that sort of like top down hierarchy to make the system correct. Because I've just feeling like there's like you saw that meme that was on Twitter where it was like everyone pulling the cart in different directions. Like it does feel like there's, Skulls and Zoos and then Twistzz and Naf and then Yakinder, off on his own and nobody's working together at all. And they really needed to, when they picked up KDN, try to like make his imagination come true in making the heroic system with new players. They kind of like, that's what they needed to do, like at sort of at all costs. And then maybe they have like already messed that up by not getting him his coach at the same time.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be hard to try and replicate what Heroic were doing, though, because of the language barrier. And I understand that Naf and Twistzz speak very good English because they're from Canada, right? That's the language, guys. I know that. But Skulls, for example, having to make that adjustment was one of the players. Yakinder's been doing it for a decent period of time. His English is very good, and Cadian is a Dane. But still, that quickness is one of the things that Heroic had that were part of their identity, right? And it's not that other teams don't do those type of moves, but it's to do it without hesitation or with the quick comms or whatever that I think is quite key. So to be able to blend all these different styles of Counter-Strike together was always going to be a challenge. And I definitely understand the argument that people are making about, yeah, okay, well, they needed to buy into Cadian's style 100% and now they're fucked. They don't have an all-pro or in-game leader. I get all of this, but there's clearly something that wasn't working there, right? That was going on behind the scenes for this change to have happened, for the team not to have functioned as they needed to, and for these drastic measures to be taken by the team, right? Like I don't think that they would just be doing it for the sake of it. And now that Twistzz, Naf, Yakinder are the 3 that are remaining there, they're going to keep that core because they want to get the positions in the events that are coming up. And then we have to look at, well, one thing, just to play devil's advocado, just everyone's favorite fruit, is to talk about what positions Twistzz was playing within the team while Cadian was there. Because Cadian is an AWPing in-game leader, it presents a unique opportunity for a rifler to fill the roles within rounds, right? Not the calling, obviously, but within rounds that an in-game leader would do. And I think Twistzz was playing some of those type of positions. So when you have this transition, and if he is going to keep being, or if he is going to be the in-game leader of the team, then there's probably not too much that's going to have to change regarding that, right? I think you would have, like, your pack would be whoever the AWPer is that they can get. And I think that they were linked at trying to get Wrinkle, but there's a bit of a kibosh that's been put on that, right? I think there was like a Dust 2 article that came out about that.
Yeah, it was a statement, I think, from NIP management saying that he's not going anywhere. I know that doesn't mean a lot of the times, but he's also literally just been signed like a few months ago. So I think that would have been an insane buyout. And also, like, if you're Wrinkle, you literally just got into a team and kind of started playing well. I don't know, even if it's NIP to
you've still got
Liquid,
plenty of years. Yeah,
it's kind of a tricky thing to fuck around with. You're kind of
finding good success.
Yeah. I think it's like a good pace for him to progress through the upper echelons and not just like jump into Liquid where the expectations are, major playoffs at minimum, versus NIP where he can like dip his toes into the top tier scene and then wait for a better opportunity. But really depends.
I was discussing this the other day with Yanko and Jason. So Launders, maybe you heard this, and I'd love to get the two of your opinion on this. So just say Twistzz will in-game lead. You're going to have Naf, who can. I think Naf is a very versatile player. I think he just needs to take a little bit more responsibility in the game because he is so good that he should make more decisions. I remember that interview, right? We're just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do my job. Like, he's the type of guy who I think needs to be maybe making more plays because I think he is a very cerebral player and is good in the lurk and can do a lot of things. Doesn't just have to be a hard anchor. But yeah, I don't know why Yakinda isn't performing. I think that's probably the question Liquid would if they'd give him millions of dollars if he could answer that. But that's the core, right? So we know that Yakinda is going to be entry. Twistzz, if he is going to in-game lead, will be part of the map control pack. NAF is probably going to be one of the extremity, either lurk or hard anchor position. They need an AWP. What about Simple? Short
fuck
term,
it.
sign him for 6 months.
It. Yeah, sign him. Yeah, sign him for 6 months.
I'm looking at. I was just trying to find some like Oppers stats. Top 50 this year, top 50 teams. So I'm just looking at most op kill per rounds. And I'm reading this name. I'm just gonna read out some names, and you stop me at any point if you see a name that you think would be available and make sense. So it's like there's just op kills per round leaderboard. So it's Art Frost, Wrinkle, Martinez, Monacy, 910, Fallen, Oscar, Icy, Brut Monster, Acor, DJL, Deagle, Hades.
DGL. Yep.
Hades maybe is a name that kind of would maybe make sense.
I think Arsina's dead, guys. How is there not a single fucking opper?
James, Slax, Searson, Idis Balance, Flay, Torji, Woxic, Shiro, Vora 2K, Zello, Khan, Afro, and
the ones that you're mentioning that are on rosters, like for example, Torji's not going anywhere, right? Like Wrinkle's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names that, especially the players on established teams, they're not going anywhere, right? But like, isn't Icy meant to be linked with Cloud9? He might not have any good English. What about
Zorty?
Art Frost? Zorty, Zorty, who's in Bet Boom at the moment, could be worth consideration.
He was untapped, and he would make a big. I think you brought that up. He was like rumored to go to G2, or sorry, to EG. Yeah, so he was willing to. Zorty has legit been nuts, and like for a week straight, a couple of weeks in the past couple of years.
I mean, his 2024 has not been that great. Like overall, BetBoom obviously struggled, but his rating for this year 106. Like he had some pretty dog events in CS2. He hasn't really stepped up. I think Yellow Compass was his best event in a while, right? Other than that, has been pretty underwhelming.
But like no one's gonna be obvious right now, right? There's no obvious guys. So like at least with Zorty, like see the ceiling, that he's willing to move, that he's willing to go international too, and you do know like what he can do. I think Bat Boom are definitely just not a good team right now. They were good at like slightly good towards the end of the last year, like slightly, but now they're just completely done. And then the other IGL, the only other IGL that's just like way out there that would be like there'd be no way in hell is Big Uzera, who we just saw such a great major from him, and outside of that, they just don't leave Brazil. They just play against Brazilian teams all the time. But as an IGL aggressive player entry, and just like the English is like not perfect, but he's like the next guy
it's not bad. Like he did,
but it would push
a ton of interviews. Like he's okay in terms of English. In game, obviously, it's going to be a bit more difficult, but he's definitely not bad in terms of his English.
He plays a lot of star positions, though, doesn't he, Big Uzera? He plays a lot of map control positions. He plays a lot of like star rifler positions, which he delivers in. Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm just saying if he comes into this team, then he would push Twistzz into something more passive, or he would have to do something more passive.
Which, I've actually heard Twistzz refer to himself as not aggressive, but explosive, to say that, he can be really, really strong trade fragging, but he doesn't really view himself the same way sometimes he's being seen, I guess. And I think maybe there's a world where, Big Uzera was bonk. He was a Brazilian donk at the major. He was getting all these entries. Rounds were about him, CTT side. So if you could have that, that same space as an opener, where NAF's not going to get in the way, obviously, then they might have a nicer like beginning and middle and end to the round. But this is not without looking at exact spots right now because I don't have them.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think like this is why I don't hate the risk of Simple, because I feel that it's not a risk in terms it's a risk in terms of what are you going to get from him, but also what type of dynamic is going to be presented in the team, because we know Simple's a very opinionated guy. So how is that going to mesh? Otherwise, do you want to take a risk on a younger guy and see if you can get him to perform? And then you still need a fifth player, right? And you probably need someone, if we are going to have Twistzz in-game leading, then you are going to need someone a bit more anchory / extremity. And then you could go with a Perfecto like we were just discussing.
And like culturally, dude, it wouldn't be the first time that Simple played on Liquid. So
it
would be fucking
It's
insane.
just, for me, it's like, if they couldn't make it work with Cadian, how do they make it work with Simple? I feel like it's not, obviously they're not the same people or players or anything, But if there is like a clash of vision and stuff like that, it's not like Simple's gonna come in and be like, okay, yeah, Twistzz, just tell me how to play and I'll do everything. Like it's again a kind of a that's a huge player to have on your team as a beginner IGL. I think that's like I don't think it can be more difficult than that. That's literally the nightmare difficulty as an IGL to have Simple, and also Simple coming back from a break. So he's not even like, it's not like you can,
It's not match fit.
you can't even trust him 100% that everything he says is going to be, always right. So you're stuck in this, you need to kind of put him in his place sometimes, but sometimes I can't get behind that. I can't get behind that, unfortunately.
Again,
I understand it's exciting. I'll watch it if it happens. I'll be excited about it, but I don't know if I can get behind it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it is a solution. Nothing's going to be obvious, and like I'd be like 40% confidence, but I would watch. I might buy a jersey.
Okay.
And it would be like Stewie to Liquid, kind of a little bit better than that, but sorry, Stewie to G2, but also like, yeah, but in terms of skulls, like this is another like team that could benefit from the anchors that seem to be possible to buy, with it's like Furia or Shush, Perfecto, or I don't know if they can get Shush, but
yeah, I feel like
JKS. Why can't Liquid get JKS? Obviously, he's not going back to G2, but why can't he go to Liquid?
If they wanted him, they could have him, I would imagine. But I need
not his agent.
Not his agent. But I will pose this question to the one of one North Americans in this podcast right now. How valuable do you think it is for Liquid for this season and this major cycle to qualify in North America? Because we would need to keep in mind the balance of the players and their nationalities. If they think it is very important to qualify in North America.
If JKS comes in, then they're chill, right? They have 2-2-1, so they can choose where they want to do it.
That's almost like a no-brainer. I'd say they have to give up on that in general, because they tried to have it both ways. But if they can again because they get JKS, then why not? But I would say they just got to shoot for the best team. Like their logic when they made their moves, when they got Rainwake. This was when they got Rainwaker.
Patsy, yeah.
I remember talking to Joker Steven. He just said like, well, our goal is to win tournaments, not just qualify to them. And then my argument to him against that was that you're still introducing a ton of randomness at major qualifiers, at major, like you could still be a great team and not make it. You're just making your life harder by doing the EURMR, essentially, is what I said. But there weren't like any good sort of like NA options at the time. And of course, now they made this team. They still don't qualify to the major, which is really like sort of the biggest disappointment. But I think they've expressed that, they're going to try to just build a team that's the right team and play whatever major qualifier they have to.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Liquid, because they're the team who, and like I mentioned before, if they spent so much money on Skulls and Cadian combined, how much money do they have to spend 6 months later on 2 new players? So there might be a portion of it, you get what you can get, or, and then that's another team that just feels like it sucks, because then it feels like, imagine if you sent NAF and Twistzz to G2, right? Like you said, NAF, how sick would that be?
What about Keserato to G2?
Keserato to G2. Ooh.
They've never won a G2, man. This is crazy.
What they deserve G2. This. With malbs.
With malbs? Okay.
Yeah.
And then
low-key, Monacy has a Brazilian, like Argentinian passport. They play the American Armor.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I like where this is going.
We just need an American name for Monacy. Like, well, Patsy was Robert from Miami, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ilya, I don't know. Luke. I don't know.
Luke Dimitri says Elijah. Yeah. This is the translation. So there we go.
Oh, okay. Elijah. All right.
No, but there is a bit of info that like the Yuri Keserato 5 years is coming up. So we don't know if they extended or anything. But maybe, who knows?
Wow, if he didn't leave before, why would he leave now?
Now I don't know. Daps is in chat. Daps says the opper is most likely European based on the options. Here we go. Daps, European opper importer. So they got to get like Nerds, Flames, JKS. We tried to get Flames before to keep the NA spot, so I assume they'll try again. I mean, we know about this. This is before he went to Vitality when he was a free agent. That Liquid was interested.
So need to get Nerds from Heroic, Flamesy from Vitality, or JKS from Free. So looking good for Justin.
Yeah.
he might be doing it. All right. So I guess are we done with Liquid?
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else? Any other rumors going around the traps? Launders, obviously, with you being in London, and did you go to the after party?
Yeah, I did go to the after party. There was
how many rumors were flying around?
No, I mean, I could tell you after.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess then we can soft lead into this because the next topic, Prosper, here for us is: will we see more changes at the top? Do you think there'll be more roster changes?
Hope so.
Okay. Well,
we can do what are the odds because they're kind of connected to everything we spoke about with G2 and Liquid. If you guys want to.
All right, let's do it. Let's go into what are the odds, brought to you by 1xBet. New little segment we've been doing on the show for the last couple of weeks. And essentially, there is a question posed. It's either a yes or a no. The three of us are going to give a percentage of how we think this one's going to go down. It will be accumulated. That'll turn into an option for you guys to, well, vote on the option of yes or no. If you are correct, with the majority of you voting on Twitter and Instagram, there'll be a certain amount of money that you can win. It goes into a kitty. I'm not going to describe that terminology again. It goes into a pool of money that at the end of the year, we'll crack it open and we'll do something nice for everybody who is a HLTV confirmed watcher in some way, shape, and or form. All right, the question for this week's What Are the Odds, brought to you by 1xBet is what, Prof?
What are the odds NiKo will IGL at more lands than Twistzz this year?
So NiKo's already in-game led at 1.
That is true.
What if Twistzz was like closet in-game leading already and we just didn't know about it?
Oh.
Does that count?
I don't think that counts.
So the problem is if they both take up the in-game leadership role, then NiKo would technically win.
Yeah, no. Depends on how many tournaments
they qualify to.
They qualify for as well.
But aren't G2 going to be qualified for more stuff than Liquid?
That's technically correct, but
that's true. Yeah,
but maybe they, some ESL challengers come in and
Liquid are going to go play that shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Launders Land. It's going to be another one.
But the thing is, NiKo doesn't have to IGL at all. And Twistzz also doesn't have to IGL at all.
So which one do we think is more likely to in-game lead?
Yeah.
I think Twistzz is more likely to in-game lead than NiKo. So NiKo will in-game lead in more lands than Twistzz.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go with 15% that NiKo will in-game lead at more lands than Twistzz this year.
Oh.
15.
1-5.
1-5.
You didn't go for a 50-50 this time?
No, not this time. Because the thing with this is, I think there is so much more of a chance that Twistzz will in-game lead and Hooksy will just stay on G2. Which I'm hoping I'm wrong. I would love for G2 to be more audacious, but I don't want to be disappointed.
It's a tough one.
So are we all supposed to do one?
Yeah. You're next.
I'm gonna go with a 0% chance that NiKo will IGL. Because
0%.
Yeah, because Yanko on your podcast said that he doesn't want to.
Fuck it, I didn't think anyone could be lower than me.
NiKo wants, NiKo gets. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't know if we got a 1%. We got a 1%. I don't
we
think
don't go as low as 0.
The technology isn't
doesn't go
0%.
What?
I'm gonna give it.
You're gonna go much higher.
I'm gonna give it 41%.
41%.
Justify the one right now. Justify the one.
Do you know how low this one is going to be? This one is going to be mental.
It's going to be crazy. The 1%, because I want it to not be 40%.
Okay, but are you going to explain your logic?
I don't know. First of all, NiKo has a lead.
Yes.
So that is it. I know.
Oh yeah, there's
based on rumors. It's I understand like your logic, Chad. That it's more likely that Twistzz is the IGL than NiKo. Obviously, both are there. But there's inherent lead here, and there's a possibility that neither of them IGL anymore. So
but who the hell would go to fucking Liquid?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Big Uzera. Like Launders just put it out there.
Okay, all right, fine.
Big Uzera. He can do it. He can do it, man. He should get a shot. Get a shot.
So are we gonna get the people at home to vote? Do we have that technology when Dimitri's here?
No,
that's fine, Dimitri. I'm not.
Yeah,
no
guys.
stress, but don't worry about it.
What's the
Just
Does
press
that mean,
1
like-
if you want Big 0 on liquid. That's all.
What's the aggregate, the average, bloody
19%? Okay.
We've never had odds like this before, have we, Prof?
No. What are these odds?
Wow. What are the people at home thinking? Put it in chat right now. Do you think, yes, NiKo will in-game lead at more lands this year than Twistzz, or no? Do you think that will not be the case? Because you guys will get to vote, not here in Twitch, on Instagram or on Twitter, and we can check it in the results next week. But that is crazy. Like, if people go with yes, there's no way, Prof. They're going to go with no. They're going to go with the safe bet, surely.
Who knows what the safe bet is? I don't think
Launders
like
it says
Instagram...
esports betting expert on his hat.
1%, motherfuckers. 1%.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, that's What Are the Odds, brought to you by 1xBet. You guys will get to have your opportunity to have your say at home at some point. Okay, so Prof, have you heard anything around the grapevine of what's going on? Is there anything exciting happening?
Obviously, the Cloud9 rumors are still active. Like
HeavyGod,
Icy. Those are the two names. And then that
HeavyGod
kid.
speaks Russian, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This
okay.
is true.
So they're not going to have to change language. Boomage to in-game lead. Still have Axel, Icy on the AWP. HeavyGod to be an aggressive rifler. They just need one more, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also like Anchory, right, on City side from what I remember. So
was he?
I think so. It was like a pit player and stuff like that.
All right.
But yeah, other than that, I don't know. And I haven't really heard too much.
Well, I think we discussed before that we don't expect roster changes from the likes of Spirit, Mouse, FaZe, NAVI, right? G2, obviously. I think Vitality, I think probably not, but there always is a maybe. Astralis, no. VP, no. Complexity, no. Heroic, unless some people can poach the players that they want from those teams, right? Like if you could get your hands on a Nerds or Sure kicks in probably the key pieces. The Mongols probably not, or definitely not making a change. What about Falcons? Do we think like Falcons would make any changes?
Oh man, they're kind of in a tricky spot because like I think people are be more apprehensive to go now, just because they're like, concerned about like, is it a career like move that I want? Is that an environment I want to go to? You know, am I going to get Boros or something like that?
It's the new Dignitas. You just get paid more money.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people are.
The thing is, like they need a star rifler, but that's actually the best performer that they have right now is Dupree.
Yeah.
So
Dude, poor Dupree's actually been so good.
It's not even warranted to replace him, right? So then the question is, what's happening with the team as a whole? It doesn't really. The cohesion is really not there. You know, the way they're losing some of these rounds is not what should happen from a team that is. Would you say, Chad, experienced? Would you say this team is experienced?
They're an experienced team.
Yeah,
it
should not happen. So I don't know. Obviously, it's the coach's problem. So Zonic needs to be fired. I'm joking.
All right, I want to ask a couple of questions to the gentleman in the room because we didn't get to talk about these topics on the last show.
Yes.
So obviously the cutoff, has everyone seen that? The cutoff
Yes.
for okay, how do we think about that?
Ties into the news that just came out. The Tropic bench roster due to changes in a major qualification, and it was also mentioned for iNation. I think when they dropped their roster, I think this is absolute bullshit.
A good excuse to get out of Counter-Strike.
No, I mean I think yes. But also, I think the dates are bullshit. I think it's absolutely unreasonable, and they just shot, you know, these orgs dead. Like all of these teams that are hopefuls on the outskirts. Not only have they removed the open qualifier part, but they made the cutoff so quick after that.
After
I mean, it's not that quick,
right?
It's not that quick. But the problem is that there's a month of no Counter-Strike being played now, so you can't really make up any room. So all of these teams know, like literally, they cannot qualify for the major already, and the major is more than 6 months away. That doesn't make any sense logically. If you just zoom out and forget, you know, all of these nitty gritty details, it doesn't make sense, and something should be different.
So what would you suggest though in this situation, Prof? Right, because we have the RMRs for Asia. I think it goes Asia, then America, which are 3 to 4 weeks before the major.
Yeah.
And then the European is like 1 to 2 weeks before the major.
It's literally like 4 days between the RMRB, EU RMRB, and the major.
Yes. So I imagine the teams who are there from the RMRs will stay, right? Because you won't be leaving Shanghai. I think they'll probably be like staying. Maybe not the Americans. Maybe they'll go home for a bit. Who knows? But also then we have a whole issue with single entry visas and that type of stuff. It'd be Brazilians as well, of course, not just American. Well, you're all Americans. What am I saying? But then also we have some key things to keep in mind, right? The top 16 teams get invited directly to the RMRs at this cutoff, so it's very unlikely that we'll be missing any of like the good teams as it stands right now. And then outside of that, what is it? Is it 42 teams that will get invited to the closed?
But my question is, do you think that the teams that get invited based on results before August are the teams that are going to be the best in fucking, I don't know, November or so, whenever we get to the RMR? Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. In 6 months, like some of these teams are not even going to exist. It's such a, but they are going to exist forcefully because the close qualifier is there, and then they'll stick around until.
Well, there won't be a closed qualifier next year, so this is only a this year problem, right? And I know that's not explaining it away by any stretch, but we are going to China.
The closed qualifier,
the visas are the issue.
Is August 21st to 24th. So you qualify for the RMR August 24th. You play the RMR November 11th.
Okay, so 2 months.
How does
away.
this make sense? How does it make sense that you qualify for the RMR 3 months in advance? Like, the form of these teams will be completely different.
Yes.
Like, not all of them, but some of them.
This is one of my concerns with the format for next year is where will the cutoff, or how early will the cutoff point be? Like, will it be a month? And like I'm saying, I think visas is the key concern for this one because of China, right? That has to be the key issue of why this is all being done so early, so visas can be worked out. In terms of exactly what you're saying, you're right. Like, it will not be showing the teams who are going to be in best form rolling into the major. It will be a lot of very good teams for sure, but we will not have our finger on the pulse as closely as we would if we were doing this, whether it would be 1.5 months before or something like that. It does feel extremely premature in that regard.
It feels very closed, That's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
With the whole thing. It's a big move away from what majors used to be, and like that idea that anyone can play and qualify, it's not real anymore. So that's kind of sad.
I do have like friends like when running this like last LAN. I had some very talented friends who are like in ECL, and like they're not going to be on the radar for bigger LANs that you can qualify for, but they are very talented, and they literally will. They're back at square one. They were super excited about the fact that partner teams are getting abolished because there wasn't a way in for in North America, and now it's like even weirder. Like, they have to find out if there's going to be bigger LANs happening in their region to be able to get points to qualify. It's even harder. It feels like.
Yeah, this is one of the things, because this ties into another conversation point I wanted to get into before we close the showdown for the night. And you were there, Mohan, in London when this announcement was going down for Blast Circuit, or how they're going to run their tournaments for next year, right, with the bounty. And we spoke to Andrew about it on the show. And since then, I've done a little bit more reading on bits and pieces with it. But yeah, so for next year, I think it's probably better we look at the framing. Whereas this year, I think it's going to be weird. Like, I agree with you, Prof. I think that it is too early, right? But that's kind of next year. I don't think there'll be RMRs, or there'll be closed qualifiers for that matter, right? So it will just be tournaments. So this is more to what you're talking about, launders. So I think for teams to be able to do well, they're going to have to play in open qualifiers to events, right? And we know that a lot of the ESL events have a lot of open qualifiers. Like we had earlier in the year, it felt like the Chengdu and the Dallas open qualifiers were almost overlapping with each other in some way, maybe regionally or whatever. It just felt like they were both going on pretty close to each other. But there's going to have to be more open qualifiers for events, or at least I thought, until I saw the stuff that happened with Blast, where I would say, I'm going to throw a percentage out there, just like we did before, but this one is probably going to be less accurate. Like 75% of the 6 tournaments in the year are positions made up in the circuit from the Valve ranking invites, as opposed to open qualifiers to get into. There's the open that has 4 that are regional. The bounty has 30 invites based off of the ranking, and then 2 wildcard spots, which I think is good because it helps in case there's any drastic roster changes. And then the final ones, what is it called? Rivals, is just 8 teams, and those will be hopefully the top 8 teams that would be invited there. So like, I don't know. I really thought there'd be more open qualifiers next year, which is kind of the thing that stunted me. ESL will definitely run them. I'm sure PGL will probably run some as well. But what do you think about that, Launders? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it was like the idea was like everything's open 100%, but of course, like everyone's gonna find a way to. I mean, the main goal is for every tournament, as tournament organizers to be like, we got the best teams here for you to watch. Like that's ultimately the goal. And then the wild card slots are the thing that at least gives me some hope that they can do like regional invites, which are fun. If they do like when they do Blast Lisbon next year, that they can get Saw, even if Saw aren't in super good form, like they might be good for a game or two, and in front of that crowd, it's going to be like excellent. So I'm like all for the regional qualifying potential of wild cards. If in an idyllic world, I would love for everything to be totally open, but it's like I do also understand why they are inviting based on ranking. I just hope that it doesn't kill the motivation for people who are just like grinding. And I think you have every right to, if there's not, cash cups and like smaller tournaments to help you like accrue those points, and not even smaller. They got to, what's the, how much is it? 100K to get you prize pool?
I don't know. I don't know what those factors are going to be, right? Because there will have to be criteria. Valve haven't released anything like in terms of what makes up the criteria yet, so we can't really start drawing that. But it is going to be strange to see how they can accumulate points throughout this. There is obviously going to be ways, right? Like I struggle to see Valve completely closing it off to just the existing professional teams as of now, because that would be doing the exact opposite of what they would traditionally stand for. So there will have to be some mechanisms in play. Did they do that because
of cheating as well? Was that just a conspiracy?
Said, I don't think that's got anything to do with it. I think the tournament's schedule is so packed for European teams, or the world's best teams is probably a better way of looking at it. Is that by removing open qualifiers, RMRs, this was all like bloat to the calendar. Right. So if there are multiple ways throughout a year where teams can prove their worth, even if it is starting from the low levels and fighting through open qualifiers and then getting good results and earning points that way, when you think about it, what we were discussing before was you only need to be a top 64 team to get in Europe, a top 64 team to get an invite to this season's closed qualifier or RMR directly. But then after...
It's just so stacked for Europe, in terms of like potentials. Like there's so many like small tournaments for actual points. There's so many qualifiers. There's more slots. So it just gets worse and worse for like the smaller regions. So it's like it's just at least a major. If that was just totally open, I feel like that would be great. And there's something weird about the fact that we're removing bloat tournaments, but RMRs yet year over year have proved to be like some of the most exciting events that we have.
Oh, emotionally, yeah, and especially with what's at stake, right? Like, I think from a season narrative standpoint, especially for the better teams, things are going to make more sense now, because each event along the journey, we can talk about what that means. How well do they need to do at this event to secure a certain amount of points to qualify them directly for this portion of the major or whatever. I think that's exciting. But yeah, if the bottom end just feels more restrictive and closed off, and there isn't what I was hoping to see, which was just open qualifiers for every tournament, then we're going to have some qualms. One thing that we didn't discuss with Andrew last week, Prof, was, and something that I spent a bit more time studying since I got home, the frequent flyer program. Did you take a read of this?
No, I didn't see it in the original announcement. I don't know if we covered it in the article or something, or I missed it. So I didn't. I know he actually referenced it when we talked about it, but my brain didn't make a connection because I didn't really know about it that much.
Essentially, it's just an incentive structure so that teams like choose Blast over other events that may or may not happen at the same time, or like, they skip because of exhaustion or whatever the case may be. So like, it just gets you like chained them together. It's also based on like how many do you commit to the whole season, which is like, in Blast's perfect world, that's what they're looking for. I mean, that's what everyone wants, is for everyone to
if I remember correctly, it's like if you attend 4 tournaments There's like 1 token and then 5.
Well, no,
and
you
6.
have to attend if you're eligible, and
Yeah.
also you need to be invited to be a frequent flyer team,
Yeah.
right? So it's not just
Not
for every
qualified.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, let's say that we're talking G2, Vitality, Navi, teams who get a lot of viewers, right? That's the type of teams we're talking about. Let's say that Blast extend, the option to them to be frequent flyer teams. If they are high enough in the rankings when the invitations are going out for their said events, so Bounty, Open, Rival, and you want to be able to accrue these tokens, which at the end of the season, I think is from a $4 million purse, right? And is how the tokens would then be divvied up between all the teams with tokens. You have to attend every one that you're eligible for. You can't skip an event. If you're eligible, you have to go. So it's like what Mohan's saying in terms of the way to incentivize these teams. One of the things
what is the money incentive? Like how much, for example, if you attend all 6 or whatever?
Oh, okay. So it doesn't really work that way. So there's like 3 features in the frequent flyer program, I guess, to talk about. One would be the tokens that we're discussing here. So what is it? It's a minimum pot of $2 million for the frequent flyer program, right? So let's say that you, me, and Mohan all represent a team, and you have 3 tokens at the end of the year. I have 2, and Mohan has 1. Well, then it's the tokens are going to be divvied up by 5. Right. Well, actually, you're going to get the lion's share. I'm going to get the middle, and Mohan's going to get the least of that $2 million. Right. Yeah. But it's how many tokens all the teams who compete in that program within the year get. But it's a minimum guarantee. So I think that there's probably something else in this discussion that would be, okay, you attend all our events, and now that we know that you're going to be doing that when eligible, we can sell on you, right? We can take you to sponsors, we can shop you around, and we can try and bring more money into this program.
Because there is like a part of the program is also like some player activations, sponsored content, recording stuff and stuff like that. Because I think that's for TOs one of the big problems going into 2025 is like before through Louvre and Blast, they had agreements with teams like, oh, we can use your players to do whatever, 1xbet Safari or whatever, and then they had these things that they could sell to sponsors and then activate on them, and that's what everyone wants, right? And without that, then you lose a lot of the potency as a tournament to actually get sponsorships. Because everyone wants the players in the end. So I think that's kind of where they are making this thing happen. But I think it's also interesting, like the fact that you can't say no to an invite without like letting go of this like token incentive thing is gonna lead to teams just playing everything.
It says right here, if a team declines an invite, they forfeit all tokens for that year.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what ESL is doing. Obviously, we'll see. But I feel like there's going to be every TO will try to put something like this.
I don't know if PGL will, do you? I think PGL will just go, we're going to run tournaments to have a shitload of prize money and you can come.
Yeah, they're kind of like, they also don't, I feel like they don't want to fuck around with all of these other things. They want to keep it as simple as possible. Come play the tournament. We do our thing and that's it. But I definitely think between Blast and ESL, there's going to be like similar incentive programs going on.
But that's why I like PGL and Silvio. It's just like, we're just putting on a Counter-Strike tournament, and if you want to play, you can play. Like, they're not out there to play any other business. Like, they're just there to put on Counter-Strike tournaments. I think the other thing I thought was quite interesting was the participation fees. So that is the 4 million figure. And I think this is good because this is purely based off of your invite position. So, guys, something that I mentioned the other day, I mentioned on Talking Counter about I should do it here on HLTV Confirmed. We have different audiences. Is a phrase that everybody should get quite comfortable with is ranking is king, right? Valve's ranking is going to be king in terms of inviting teams to tournaments. So for the Blast Bounty event, if your rank at the time of invite for Valve's ranking is 1 to 8, just to go to the Blast Bounty event, this is not including prize money, you get $40,000 for your team, right, to go. You go down the list. If you're for the open event, if you're 1st to 12th, you get $45,000 per team just to go. And then for the Blast Rivals, which is only the top teams, so that's 1st to 8th, that's $81,250 per team. So these are essentially appearance fees. But these are great ways to incentivize the orgs, I guess, to go. I don't know what type of split that is going to the teams, but that's also something to keep in mind there. I think they've done a great job. Did you have any hand in this, Launders? Did they bring you in conversations regarding the formats and everything?
Dude, I am so daft when it comes to formats and stuff like that. Okay. But I know, and it's like Blast have obviously experimented with lots of stuff over the years, and I've always like been in those conversations and stuff. But every time I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome, and then like it plays out, and it's like, oh, that's kind of annoying. Like we're watching EG play again. It's like so sometimes like I can't see it before it happens, and when we get to the bounty, it's just that's the thing I'm definitely most excited about.
It's
And
exciting.
when when we get there, we'll see how like the psychology will be with like who picks on who and how it actually plays out. I feel like it's very hard to actually forecast how some things are going to go format wise, or I'm just particularly bad at like being right about that. So that's something that I just sort of like, I just observe, I just see how it plays out. And then, I think we're all very clear on whether or not it works shortly after. But I mean, I can say I'm definitely excited about this next year in terms of like, at least doing something different because I think the one concern they had was like the monotony of the calendar. Like you do have to have perfect like competitive integrity long events that like the winner is like it's both regional best but also top ranking best, and you got like Kato and Cologne and stuff like that, so you need to have like a mix of that, I think. But you can't really compete with that by just putting more in. You almost do a disservice to the whole calendar if it's the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you can't come to conclusions after like certain events or majors or whatever. So I think it does a good job of creating space for other people in that way with the format, and maybe encourages a bit more creativity as well.
No, but I agree with that framing like wholeheartedly, because it's something that when we're doing these type of shows, we kind of have to do the framing of what this event means in this in terms of the greater context. But now that we have this major at the end of the season, hopefully, and if more TOs are willing to take some risks or chances on things that are a bit more dynamic and fun or have cool mechanisms like this bounty, and it's so well placed being the first event essentially out of the break, that this is a great event to do it starting online, which is great because these teams can do a boot camp and they can play from the boot camp, and then if they qualify for the LAN portion, they can go off. It's a nice soft start to the year. It's a big breadth of teams. It has the fun mechanism of the bounty. So how will that impact teams' decisions on who they want to pick? And it's obviously the lower seed teams from 17 to 32 getting to pick against the upper seed opponents of who they want to play. If you're 17, you're just going to be a bitch and pick 16. Do you want to go higher up in the ranking because in prac you knew that you were better than it? Like, think about all the storylines you get to do, Mohan, with that at Stadia. It's fucking awesome. That's GB James and me right now.
It's literally like I was thinking about, you kind of create your own group now. And it's like, if you're bitch made and you don't want to fight certain teams, you can't hide behind getting a lucky run anymore. So I'm really excited about like taking that slightly out of the conversation about like what it took to win the event, like because now you're going to get called out, you're going to have to put your ego on the line, you're going to have to face a team that you think you actually might have lost to, and you can no longer say, well, like, yeah, we would have beat them if we had to because we were playing so well right now. Now you have to prove it.
Yeah, okay, all right, gentlemen, is there anything else we want to say to wrap up this season? Anything anybody wants to get off their chest? The first half of another year that's flying by, 2024.
I know the game is not in the perfect spot right now, and I am like having trouble getting motivated to just like play the game itself. But the esport right now is so fun. I feel like we had just got so lucky once again, like with Donk and Kato and Stewie winning Dallas, and the amount of stories that have come out, the amount of parity in the top four, the play styles that are working are very fun to watch, I would say. And so in terms of meta, it's so much better than it was from 2020 that was online till the end of CSGO, where it was like all these tier 2 teams we didn't know about. It feels like a lot more things are out in the open. A lot of individuals are shining. Like no idea how this year is going to end up. And it's very exciting to think that every season now will end on a major. So I'm feeling like very optimistic and grateful for Counter-Strike as a scene and to do my job to make videos and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm just having like so much fun right now. So really, really like, I don't think we have the best. Now I feel comfortable saying we just got the best scene in the world, best game in the world by far.
Yeah,
obviously, because I don't watch any others, I completely agree.
We are in a fun spot with the esports side of things. I've been like playing, a bit since on break, and I don't know exactly what today's update, or I guess it was yesterday's update, did, but like. Hope anything that I see relating to netcode has to be good, right? In the sense that at least they're tweaking things so we can see how that feels when we're playing. And one of the things that I'm trying to keep an open mind to as well is we do definitely have a very broad community. And this is one of the things I got frustrated the most at when we first transitioned to CS2 was we lost a lot of elements that we had when we had CSGO, like people being able to be part of these custom communities like Surf or KZ, like which I know is big for you launders, right? Or even me and my Danger Zone group. Like there's a group of people who fucking love Danger Zone, right? And these are things that we don't still have available to us. And I see everybody getting antsy with the 25th anniversary of Counter-Strike. And as we tend to do as a Counter-Strike community, build ourselves up into a bit of a tizzy. Right, we get this hype train going, and we think that all these things are going to happen because it's a date that coincides with something exciting for us, right? But with Valve,
also Counter-Strike has 25 anniversary. It's like a girlfriend,
so
bro.
many,
it's like it's a beta the first release of the official, the CS:GO release, the CS2 release. Like every month there's an anniversary, and it always catches you off guard. That's how I feel.
But the thing is that if there is an update coming, it'll come when it's ready, guys. Like you don't all need to be disappointed and say Valve don't care and all this shit. They just ported CS:GO to a whole new engine, and the thing that I would want them to do first is make the game as close to CS:GO as humanly possible, right? With giving it its own flavor and flair, fixing the boost, fixing some of these netcode issues, just any of these little funky problems that we have. That's what I would be looking for them to fix first before we get an operation. And I'm gagging to go out there in scrimmage mode or whatever the fuck it's going to be called and wreck some of you bots on fucking Mill. Like I'm can't wait to be a demon against you. But it's not there yet. Let's all just take a breath. And I want to waste money opening cases. I want to spend my hard-earned dollars, but it's not there yet, guys. It's going to be fine.
We have heard from the devs, like, talking to them, that their intent is just to make sure the core of the game is protected and developed correctly, and then everything that they add on after that they will and are intending to add. And words are something and promises are something that Valve sometimes you promise something, but on Valve time it might not come to fruition for years. But that is what they've declared their intention to be, and I think that it does feel like they are trying to do that at least. So. There's some parts about CS2 definitely better than CS:GO. I will say that.
I like the smokes. The smokes are sick.
Yeah, the smokes they blow, dude. Casting, it's like it still blows my mind every time I see one. I swear, like the fact that they're so dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's going. I've always thought that we needed that kind of one mechanic that makes our game stand out from every other thing. And I know for somebody to be like, oh, Counter-Strike's so unique, but I've played like lots of esports, lots of different games, and I've just notice there's like this one thing, like Fortnite, for example, has editing, which is a very special mechanic for Fortnite that makes that game incredible at like a very high level. And I think that like Counter-Strike now has this smoke is like the iconic part about CS2 that separates it not just from CS:GO, but like the entire like last 20 years. So we're lacking a little bit on the movement. That's slowly gotten worse like in the last 20 years, but these smokes are amazing, actually.
All right. Yeah, nice. Yeah. We said some nice things, guys. All right. Let's hope the Striker's all right, everybody. Everybody, I want you to tweet at Striker, tweet him a picture of a cat. Doesn't have to be your cat.
Oh, can I do a plug?
Yeah, of course.
This hat is now on sale at boxermovement.club.
When's our collab happening?
Yeah, we should talk.
HLTV and Boxer?
Yeah,
was a Prof and Boxer.
We do HLTV Boxer?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
No, get Martin on the phone. Yeah, but that you guys only have that shirt, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to get some launders inspired shit, and then maybe I'll wear it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there we go. Let's make it happen. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of HLTV Confirmed. Thanks to 1xBet. Thanks to Trade.gg. Thanks to Striker, who did half an episode. Thank you for Dimitri for filling in for Lucas. Thanks to Prof. Thanks to Launders. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Good night.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees, Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
The world is changing,
changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xbet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.